Welcome to Gen X Adulting. And today we have Ryan Kemp-Pappan with us, better known as Ryan the Therapist. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello.
We are so happy to have you with us. And our
Thank you
first,
for being here or letting me be on here.
of course, our first question is always, what year were you born?
1975.
So you are Gen X.
I am, but I'm a late blooming Gen X
Oh, that's interesting. So why do you call yourself a late blooming Gen X?
because I didn't get my shit together until I was 25. So I always subtract 5 years, like
Okay.
from my age, and that it makes more chronological sense for me.
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like a lot of us didn't get our shit together.
Congratulations on getting your shit together. That's pretty
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just stated that I had my shit together. No,
good.
when I got sober,
I
uh,
see, I see, I see. Okay, right. And where were you born?
I was born in Los Angeles, California.
And was your family from there, like your grandparents or your great grandparents?
Um, no, my mother's family is from Olympia, Washington,
Mm,
and my father's family are from northern Oklahoma and sort of Texas. My
okay.
uh, my father is indigenous, and my
Okay.
mom is white.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm a proud son of the Pawnee Nation and also of the Kaw Nation. But that's like so that's the Oklahoma part. They're from
Okay.
Ponca City and sort of northwest of Tulsa.
Okay. So how did they meet?
My parents,
Yeah.
um, my grandfather, when he got, I don't know, I can't remember if he left, finished residential school or if he ran away. But when he left the residential school, he kind of wandered around the country, sort of. This is pre-World War II, kind of sort of trying to find a place to be, and ended up back home after a stint in Oregon. He went to the University of Oregon and played football there for food,
Hmm.
um, and then went back home to Oklahoma, the reservation, and he went out drinking with his brothers and ended up at a bar where my grandmother, her brothers were at, and they got into a fight
Okay. So
because
so your grandmother, was she also indigenous?
no, well, yes, she was half, but she was white presenting, so she
Okay.
looked white. And back then, she was white.
Okay.
She didn't embrace her indigeneity, but so the brothers were white, and they got into a fist fight and ended up in jail together. And my grandmother's father bailed her brothers out, but also bailed my grandfather out.
Nice.
And they were like, oh, "Okay, thank you." And then years later, they were hanging out in the town, and they met each other. And she had a child out of wedlock. My grandmother did,
Hmm.
which I don't know the whole story at all. It's kind of a mythical thing for us, but they were going to get married, but World War II happened, and he was going over to fight. And he's like, "I'm not going to leave you a widow. We're not getting married until I come back, or if I come back." So he went and did his thing. Was part of a tank crew that helped liberate the Eagle's Nest. The Eagle's Nest,
No.
the stronghold up in the mountains of Germany that Hitler had.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes, yes. Okay. Okay.
He
He was part of that?
there was because they couldn't serve with white people, so he was part of an indigenous tank crew, and their tank crew, the indigenous tank crew, and a black tank crew were the first lead tanks going up that mountain, and they're the ones that encountered the rock slide that was intentionally put in the road, and they blew it up, and then all the history and stuff is the people going up and then finding all the art and stuff that was hidden up in that place.
What a
Interesting.
trip. So, okay, they the indigenous military members, what was it, like army?
Yeah, he was in the army.
Okay, so
like a battalion
the
or something.
Indigenous battalion and the African American battalion, they were separate from the white
Yeah,
battalions?
Oh, yeah.
yes, that you couldn't serve mixed.
Very
Okay,
much the unsung heroes of
right.
Yeah.
various
I mean,
wars.
of every war, it's always
Yeah,
poor people and people
and
of
they
Right.
sent them
color who pay
first,
the
to your
price.
point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a trip.
wars are fought for rich men by poor.
Right. Right. So when you said residential school, is that what the school is called on the reservation?
He'd know. At 3 years old, my grandfather was taken by the federal government from his family and sent away to a residential school, a boarding school. And that was the government's institutional effort to eradicate natives.
So where
Uh,
was that school?
he was sent because he was 3. He was lucky. He got sent from Ponca City, which is North Oklahoma. He got sent to Haskell, which is in Lawrence, Kansas, just about 40 minutes from here.
So the motive behind that is to remove the children from the home and raise them white? Like
Yeah,
indoctrinate
well,
them?
the literal policy was to save the kill the Indian to save the man,
So
and that was federal policy. We're in the Declaration of Independence. Indigenous people are called savages.
Yeah.
so what year would that have been when he was taken around?
Oh God, somewhere between 1910 and 20. I'd have to like pull out
But
the timeline of his life,
that gives an
but the
idea.
early 1900s.
So he was taken there, put there when he was 3, raised in kind of an institutional,
Yeah, it was. I
environment?
mean, are you guys familiar with the residential schools, like the?
No,
No, I've not heard of it, but it makes
no. So
sense. You
please
separate the family, you indoctrinate them into
Yeah,
this new
and they intentionally sent
Anglo-European.
the siblings to different parts of the
Yeah,
country.
yeah.
so they were
Like,
separated and they grew up. It wasn't like they were sent to a foster home. They were in an
yeah,
institutional
and generally when they were
environment.
religious institutions, like the Catholic Church was huge in it. There's rarely a denomination of Christianity in this country that wasn't part of the the solution to eradicate indigenous people. And so he was sent, and where I mean, hundreds and thousands of kids were brutalized, sexual abuse, incredible violence, beaten. They weren't considered human.
And this went on for from the time he was 3 until
Oh, till at least I think he left around 16.
he escaped.
Yeah, essentially. No, I can't remember if it was he completed school or he just left. But in the wake of that, he was an alcoholic
Well, yeah.
in that, and that's where for me alcohol was just such a normal part of our life. Everyone drank, everyone smoked, everyone did something.
I mean, I think it makes sense. The trauma he went through, it totally
Yeah,
makes sense that he turned to alcohol, if not
well,
other
Oh, that's
things.
by design
You
too,
know,
though.
well,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
well, in indigenous part of we don't have I mean, alcohol is poison to everybody, but to me, drinking is literally like it. I don't have the enzyme to process it. Like the red face and stuff. Like it really fucks with me. If having any kind of alcohol, I don't. I mean, I had to earn that tolerance of, but yeah, I don't know if what the history of that is. There's smarter people out there for that one.
But
Uh,
but for most indigenous people, they can't tolerate alcohol the same way
yeah,
others,
we
correct?
similarly, the same way with when the time of contact, European diseases were different, and indigenous populations didn't have the immune system to deal with it. Which is funny because that largely has to do with cleanliness. That Europeans lived in proximity to animals. They would share literal homes with their animals, and so they got
Mhm.
exposed over time, and they developed different tolerances. Where in the Americas, uh, they were separated. The animals
Right,
were one place, and so they didn't have the same sort of lifestyle. But now it gets painted. Oh, the Europeans are more strong and have better
Yeah.
genetics and whatnot. But no, it's because they were dirty, poor fuckers.
right, No, that makes such sense.
That's funny.
So when he left at 16, he came straight back home?
No, he wandered the country a little bit,
Oh,
like
that's
kind of like
right. That's what you said.
vagabond.
That's right.
He would
Yeah.
he would regale us with stories of like essentially like being a hobo. He would travel the rails and like just go all over the place. Uh, and I don't know how much of it is true because, my family is known for storytelling.
Mm.
And, my father was an incredible storyteller. And from what I remember, my grandfather was even better. But storytelling is a really big component of our family. Even on my mom's side, they're I think Scotch. So I can't remember. It's Welsh. They're originally from Wales. Um, but everyone was a storyteller growing up.
So he, from what you know, went around the country, traveled to different areas, and then landed in Oregon at U of O in Eugene and just applied and got in?
I honest to God, I just know that he played football at the University of Oregon for food, and I don't know the whole story. And to be honest, it could be total bullshit because of
Right.
the storytelling.
Yeah, yeah.
That there's that movie Big Fish.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
swear to God, that's my dad. He would tell the craziest, most outlandish shit, and I'd be like, okay. And then as
Huh.
an adult, I'm going around saying this stupid shit to, in college. I remember some history course. I have an identical twin brother. We're actually
Yeah.
mirror twins. We're the closest you can get to being two people with genetic similarity. Like we're exact copies of each other, but mirrored.
Wow.
Um, and I took one college class with him, a Native American history class. And this was when the Unabomber was like still kind of out there being wild. And there was a kid with a hoodie sitting next to us, and he kept
Oh
hitting me,
man.
going, "Hey, it's the fucking Unabomber! It's the fucking Unabomber!" I'm like, "Dude, it's the first day of class. Pay the fuck attention. Come on." And it was a little Italian lady teaching it, and he looked over the syllabus and started making notes. And then she said, "Okay, anyone have any questions?" And he raised his hand, and she says, "Yes." He says to her, um, "What right do you have as a white woman to teach me my history?"
The Unabomber guy said that?
No,
No,
my
his
twin brother said that
brother.
to the
Oh,
professor.
That's awesome.
And I
oh.
looked at him and I'm like, "Shut the fuck up." And I'm like totally mortified. And she's like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "Yeah, why is a white lady going to teach me?" She's like, that's my doctoral studies. Let's move on." And but when she would give us exams, he never did the readings, and he would correct her exams to the right way and then take his exam. And towards the end of the semester, I'm like, "Dude, you're going to fucking fail your own history. Like, seriously, chill the fuck out and just take the fucking course. Like, you don't have to read shit, it, but don't fuck with her."
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And out of mercy, she gave him a D.
Well, there
Oh,
you
that's
go.
funny.
But what was he going on off of the stories?
Yeah, in part the story, but he also my twin brother, he's really really smart, and that's kind of his bullshit. Is he's really really smart and never had to kind of work at school, which was good because he never liked going to school.
Mhm.
So he's now funny. He's a middle school teacher now. He's like the perfect middle school teacher. He knows all the bullshit, and
Oh, yeah.
it cracks me up.
It
But
takes a special person to teach middle school.
it does. And not only does he's a English language learner
Mm.
teacher, so
Okay, so he's teaching English to, like, children who don't speak English?
yeah, most of his students right now are, I think he said, from Ukraine and Hispanic countries. So
Okay,
speaking Spanish, but he
right.
teaches everybody.
That's cool. So
But
when your grandfather left U of O and came back home then, was that the first time was his mother still alive
no, his mother died um, when he was really little.
while he was away after he was taken?
That That's another kind of foggy part. I don't know what the proximity was, if she died and that was the impetus for him to be removed,
Ah,
because they didn't take babies. Like he had a sister, Rose, who was maybe 2 or 1 or 2 when they took him. She stayed behind at on the reservation and wasn't sent away until later.
Mm.
Okay, so you don't know if his mom was still alive at the time he was
I
taken.
know I know she died either just before he was taken or within a year or so of, because my grandfather, my father's father, he remarried, and so my grandfather had like 3 or 4 other siblings, like half siblings.
Okay. All right. So when your grandfather left Yuvo and came back, was there family there when he came back
Yeah,
home?
because when he came back and he went back to the reservation, and the reservation sits butted up against sort of northwest of Tulsa.
Mhm.
And so he went back there, and they knew everybody. Then my grandmother is from Skiatook, Oklahoma. That's where they all live and kind of where they ran, and that's sort of adjacent to the reservation, the Pawnee Reservation. Um, yeah, he went back there and like kind of sort of settled back in and was reconnecting to people. And he found
Okay.
his sister later in life. Um, I want to say it was after the war, when he came back home. He and my grandmother reconnected, and then they got married. And he was a construction worker,
Okay. Did they
and
stay in the same area?
I think for a little bit, but then for better fortune, that's how they ended up in Los Angeles.
So what brought them to LA?
Better work, like the good weather, and Los Angeles was experiencing a building boom.
Yeah, I bet it was.
So it was
Yeah,
like the promised land,
yeah.
the land of
'Cause this
milk and honey. And
Post World War
yeah,
II,
this would have
LA,
been
SoCal
yeah,
blew up.
yeah.
Yeah,
He would have been right there in the beginning of all of that, right?
yeah,
Because
and they bought this house, a tract home in Westminster, California. And like my dad grew up there at that house, and then later in life, my parents got divorced, and my dad returned back home to that same house that he grew up in.
they keep it in the family or did he
It did until, fuck, I forget, in the last maybe 10, 15 years. I can't remember when they sold it, but they eventually did sell it. But it stayed in the house, the family for 50 years.
That's
that's cool.
amazing. That is really cool. So when your grandparents moved to LA, they had your dad. Did he have any other siblings?
Yes. So my grandmother, she had a child out of wedlock, my Uncle Joe,
Mhm.
and he stayed back, and he came to with them to LA, and he played basketball and was pretty good apparently, and was going to play for UCLA, but he got his girlfriend pregnant,
Mm,
and they went back to Oklahoma to raise the family. So
okay.
he was there, but not really.
Right.
And then my father he was the oldest of the 3 other siblings. So my father, and then I had 2 aunts, his siblings, his sisters, were both younger than him, and now they're all of them are dead.
Okay, wow. So did your grandparents you said your grandma presented white, correct?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I always thought she was all white and didn't realize it until after she died. I was doing research, and I found out that she was indeed Cherokee. She
Oh,
was
that's
Huh.
registered to the Cherokee
interesting.
Nation. And I was like, "Get the fuck out of here for real! Like that's crazy."
Because
Um,
was your grandfather, did he present indigenous?
oh yes, and being in Los Angeles, everyone thought he was Mexican,
Okay.
and that used to my dad too. My dad was 6'4" and well 300 pounds, built, very muscular, like just fucking Paul Bunyan. Just was a big fucking guy and had this
Yeah.
booming voice, and uh, publicly had a very calm demeanor unless you challenged him, or
Right.
if you hurt someone in front of him, it didn't matter who or what, he was going to get involved, and he was going to stop. And he was he was a good guy. I would say earlier in I forget when, but he was a functional alcoholic too.
Would you say his siblings probably were as well?
Um, no, there's other dysfunction there,
Okay.
uh, and that's so the middle sister, who was my favorite of the aunts, my dad's siblings. She was like the fun aunt. I loved her. She was so fucking awesome. She was a hairdresser and just so beyond her time. They were all Christian
Mhm.
Presbyterians, all of them, and her and my grandfather, my grandmother helped build the first Presbyterian Church of Westminster.
Oh,
And then
wow.
my grandmother went every Saturday with the church ladies, the auxiliary, and cleaned the church and did all of that for years. I mean, God, for as long as I can remember, that was her thing. And yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot where the fuck I was going with that.
No, I was just asking about his siblings. So you had the one
Oh,
fun.
so my favorite aunt, I loved her. She was a hairdresser. She was awesome. And then there was the youngest. No, sorry, that aunt was the youngest. The middle, his middle sister, was an interesting person, and that's the part of my story. She was an abuser to me,
Okay. Okay.
and she was not. From what I understand, there was no alcohol usage, but
All right.
she was not a very kind person.
Okay. And then
Eh,
was there also another brother or was it 3
Well,
sisters
the one brother, Joe, was
with
back in
him? Yeah.
Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and he died relatively young. He was like 50 or 55. He had a heart attack and had a heart transplant,
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
and like early heart transplants. And he died when I was young. He died probably 10, somewhere between 10 or 12 I was when he died. I had never met him. I'd only
Oh,
seen
okay.
pictures and I've only heard stories. Never got to meet him, and I have a whole mess of cousins who I know, but
Right.
only met 2 of them ever face to face.
Are they all out there, like
Mhm.
in, the Oklahoma
Yeah, they're
area?
all in Oklahoma still, and I even lived in Oklahoma for 6 years and never made it there.
Connected. So there was Joe, your dad, and the 2 sisters?
Mhm.
Okay. So, was your mom also in LA? Or no, she was up in
She was in
her family's
Olympia.
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 Mhm.
Okay, so
And
your
she has an
dad.
interesting story too. My mom, her biological father was murdered when she was like 3 or 4,
Wow.
and, when he was murdered by, and they don't know, I actually have the transcripts of the trial that happened, and, he went hunting. They owned a filling station up in Olympia, and at the end of the day, they were gonna go hunting, and instead of going to the bank, he said, "Fuck it," and put the money in the bag, put it in his glove box and locked it. And
Mm.
he and his assistant or whoever the other guy was, they went hunting, and he never came back, and they never found him. They
Wow.
When they went searching, from what I gather, they were coming. The guy he went with was coming back, and the speculation was that he was in cahoots with 2 other guys, and the 2 other guys went to go steal the money, and it was locked, and they couldn't get in, and so they were like, "Well, fuck that," and they went to get him, and he was a big guy too, and, there was some sort of and they killed him, and then put his body in one of the rivers up there,
Yeah.
that went out to the ocean.
Hmm.
But what they found was his clothes on one side of a river, with his shoes, and his clothes were folded, and his rifle was leaning against a, tree, and that's all they ever found of him.
That sounds like they set that up to make it look
Mhm.
like he went swimming.
I think so too, but
Yeah. That's what that
they
sounds like. So that's how old was she when that happened?
3 or 4,
So
and
then
my grandmother had she had 3 kids. My mom has 3 siblings, or yeah, there's 3 of them. And, my grandmother never worked, stayed home, and so
Mhm.
she was like, "Well, I guess I'm gonna run the filling station because at the take care of my kids, and then found out that her husband's family hated her, and they fucked her over and took the filling station, and they knew the county clerk, and she got asked out of everything, and in fact was they were looking to evict her from the home.
Oh my
Jeez.
gosh. So what
And
happened?
well, she left the home because she didn't own it. It was in his name, and the family took it all. And the county clerk would not. There was something with the county clerk that, like, some corrupt bullshit, like his family knew this person. So she left and went to some of her cousin's house and then rebuilt her life. But she was so upset, she ran for county clerk and became the first female county clerk of that county.
That's
Nice.
hilarious.
That is amazing because she became the single mom, widow.
Yeah.
The family evicted, she had to start a whole new life
She was a
as a
bad
single
bitch.
mom. And then
Yeah.
Love it.
the best revenge right there. That's amazing.
Yeah, she was so hardcore, and, she she was crazy. Like, I tell my daughter, like, "You have no chance. You're gonna be a bad bitch. You come from such a long line of strong women."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and empower yourself, girl. Like, just it is, like, the world is not ready for that, but yeah, she was awesome. She had a heart, or not a heart, a massive stroke in 1980. My mom's mom did, and lost the usage of her whole left side of her body. And she lived riding a little scooter up until 2005 or six.
Hmm.
Wow.
So
That's
she lived
amazing.
25 plus years, 25, 26 years, after having had a massive stroke.
Wow.
That's amazing. So your mom's in Olympia, Washington.
Hmm.
Your dad's in LA. How did they
Yeah.
meet?
Well, apparently, after the whole gas station thing, and I don't know how my grandmother met my grandfather, but they met, and they moved to Los Angeles, and he was either some kind of businessman. I don't know what the fuck he did.
Okay, so wait, your mom's mom remarried?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
she
then
remarried, and
and
then
then they moved to LA.
yes,
Did he have kids from a previous marriage, or were you guys the only
no,
kids? Okay.
no, my mom and her two siblings. My mom is the youngest. She has an older sister and older brother. The older my uncle, he's dead. He died a few years ago. But they all moved down to Los Angeles and lived a very middle class life. You know, honestly, they're probably upper middle class, very sort of gilded. You know,
Do you know why they went to LA?
I don't.
What
I
Probably economic
Yeah,
again.
well, what did he do?
He was some sort of businessman.
Okay, and then was she still involved, like, in politics at all, or did she become a stay-at-home
No,
mom?
she became
Okay,
stay at home mom.
okay. So, so then did they go to the same school? Your mom and
No,
dad?
well, then so how my mom and dad met. My mom, her sister was dating this guy, well, and his house was at one on this one street. Right across the street was my auntie's house, my grandfather's sister that he found later. And my
Okay,
father, they had a
okay.
swimming pool. This was in San Fernando, California, and they had a swimming pool. And my father, like, lived there. This aunt was like his favorite human on earth. He loved her so much, and my grandfather loved, like, once he found his sister, it was over like that. I am never fucking leaving. We are never losing contact. So when my dad was a kid, was over there like every other weekend in the summers. He, like, lived there, so he became best friends with the guy across the street, and that guy was dating my mom's sister.
Mm,
And
okay.
uh, I think the lore was, "Hey, we're gonna go on a double date. I need somebody to go with. I can't. I have to go with my sister." And so they brought my dad. Was the guy that they're like, "Hey, will you do me a solid and go on this double date with me? Because there's this woman and she needs a date." And that's how my parents met.
Okay,
That's
Was
so
funny.
that way?
he was being a
The
wingman.
wingman, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, a wingman, and which cracks me up because that my aunt and uncle, my mom's sister, they're still married and have been
Oh,
married
okay.
fucking forever.
Mm.
Um, and they live in Reno now. And yeah, she was a
So
banker or something, and he worked for the Bureau of Land Management.
so both those couples that went on that date ended up getting married.
Yes.
Okay.
And but my parents probably should never have gotten married. There was a lot of conflict, and personally, looking at it as a therapist, certainly both of them were using it within their means to escape their family situations, as one does. And
Right.
they got married really young, and they were married for like 15 years before they got divorced.
Do you know how old they were when they got married?
Oh, like they were babies. I think my mom may have been 19.
Mm.
Okay. But not that she got pregnant or anything, they just chose to get married
No,
that
they
young.
they and I will say I know that they loved each other,
Yeah.
but they were very different people. My dad was very old school and conservative, and my mom was everything but. She,
Mhm.
coming from my grandmother, she had no chance either. My mom's a bad
Right.
bitch.
Right.
So that they kept butting heads over like the roles of women. My dad wanted a stay-at-home mom, and my mom was like, "I'm fucking bored. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to do this." And she went to nursing school, or I guess back then, because she never went to college. Neither one of my parents went to college. In fact, I'm the first one in my family to go to college.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's something like that. She volunteered at like a candy striper, and then worked
Right.
her way up in her
Right.
career, as my father did too. He was a draftsman and then became an engineer
Oh,
on the
wow.
job, and then that became like a facilities manager. And he worked for Budweiser, and he worked for Boeing. He had a fucking awesome career.
Especially considering he didn't go to college.
Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
both of them though are really fucking smart. But
Yeah.
the feature for both of them, my dad, they always were lived in poverty. Money was always scarce, and there was this scarcity of not just financial resources, but emotional resources. My grandfather, having survived residential school and being a functioning alcoholic, there was a lot of difficulties. He was very physically abusive
Mm.
and,
Yeah.
emotionally
Mm.
absent. From what I gather, he was a better grandfather supremely than he was a father.
Right.
Um, and my dad stymied a lot of that, but he did shit that hurt me,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
It
and
it passed through the generations.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I guarantee, like I know I'm going to hurt my kids. Hurt is part of the equation. Humans hurt,
Right.
but I hope that my kids will hurt differently.
I have no doubt that you have already broken many generational trauma cycles, however you want to put it, just in your line of work alone.
Yeah, well, that's my greatest achievement, is that my kids are 9 and 11, and they don't know a fucking thing about what I experienced.
Right. And
Because
that's the goal, right?
that, as far as I'm concerned, I succeeded.
Yeah.
I've been able to provide a safe and loving bond. My kids are we have a very firm and healthy bond and attachment. And, you know, uh, the bullshit's mine. I got to remind myself that their entitlement and their ease, that's my success. But it
Yeah.
fucking sucks
It's
to, it's so horrible.
well, we gave them a voice, right? Because we didn't have one, but then they come at us with that voice. And it's almost like careful what you wish for.
Hmm.
Yeah. One thing I wish people would have told me before I had kids, hey, fucker, when you have kids, just know it's going to be a mad trigger. Every fucking developmental stage, you're going to get triggered.
Yes,
That's
it's
great.
true.
So put it
Actually,
out there. So right the
spot
fuck,
on.
because people need to know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's so true. And then we have to be careful with displacement, right? Displacement that we're not, they may come with us with they spilled milk, and we have to be careful that like what we come at them isn't all this past triggered shit over spilled milk.
You
You know
say
what I
that,
mean?
I do. When I was a kid, like we had shit. We were really broke most of the time. And so when I don't remember having, like, when my parents were married, I remember having stuff like I had toys and things like that. Star Wars toys, by the way, which I wish I
Awesome.
still had. Um,
Oh, nice.
but that's another part of the story. But once my parents got divorced, we moved back to. We lived in Washington State. My dad moved up.
Mm.
We moved up to Hanford, the Hanford plant, so Richland, Washington.
Where is I'm from Oregon,
It's
so I'm familiar, but
southern.
I'm not
It's
familiar with that.
sort of southeastern. It's east of Mount Hood of
Isn't
the
it,
Cascades.
But it's in Washington.
is that the
Yeah, it's
nuclear
along the
plant?
border. It's the Tri-Cities. So if you go up
Yeah,
Portland and you go
yeah.
across the river, and I forget what that highway is, you go about 2 hours, and it's literally in the shadow of the Eastern Cascades.
Okay, I know what you're talking
And
about.
Hanford was like a Superfund site. There's a
That's what it
nuclear
was.
reactor and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's what it was.
That's
Yeah.
where my dad worked.
Okay.
He went up there because that was like the biggest job, and he got a huge ass pay raise, and like so he went there and was working, and we went to school there, my brothers and I, but their marriage did not last. I have memories of when we were kids of comforting my my. I have two younger brothers, but only one of them was alive then. My twin brother and I would go and comfort him. He was like 1 or 2, and we would,
Because of what was going on in the house?
yeah. Sorry about that.
That's
Uh,
okay.
a Lego fell.
Ah,
Oh no.
yeah, we were talking about that, how
Yeah.
Lego falls and breaks or how a Lego breaks, and then what do you do? Do you need
Yeah.
to
Oh
get
well.
do you need to get it?
No.
Okay.
It
How
just
old
became pieces.
how old were you when you guys were up there?
We moved there, I wanna say it was 78 or 79 because we were only up there for a couple of years.
I see you're pretty young still then.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
little. Interesting, when I was little, because I'm a twin, not because I have talent, my brother and I were in the movies.
Really? What
Mm.
movies?
We did a lot of TV. I was on Little House on the Prairie.
Mm, I
I
love
remember
that
working
show.
with Michael Landon, and then we did a few TV movies. One on Michael Landon did a Revolutionary War thing, and we were in that. I was in the Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno,
No
Okay.
and
way.
I have a memory of Lou Ferrigno. Like we were scared shitless of him because he's a fucking big green guy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I remember him in the full makeup and stuff going, "Boys, it's me, Lou. It's
Oh,
Lou." And somewhere there's a picture of him flexing like the Hulk with my brother and I hanging from his arms.
no
That's cool.
way.
Yeah, because
So was
sorry?
was this all when you were living in LA? This was all going
Yeah,
on?
my mom, she was a bored housewife. She did not wanna be a housewife. She was so not fucking cut out to be a housewife. She fucking hated it. So she would invent shit to be social because my mom is very social.
Mhm.
And one of it was there was this thing called the Twins and Triplets Club that she was part of. And, through that, they're like, "Hey, you guys," Hollywood would be like, "Hey, can we meet your kids?" Like, 'cause we can work double.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
which was funny, my brother hardly ever worked because he never listened. He didn't take direction. So I did all the work, but they put it on paper that we both worked.
It's fun you mean the one who questioned
That's
the college professor didn't listen when he was on set?
Right?
Shocking.
what a
Real.
remarkable
Shocking.
concept.
So do you have an IM what is it, an IMBD or ED? The
No,
B
because
IMDb.
I was, 3 or 4, this was in the late '70s,
Yeah, too
and I
too
went
old
and tried to
for that.
find these things. Um, I couldn't find shit, like, and I found something I was watching Little House on the Prairie, and I'm like, "I think that's me,"
What a trip.
but it matched the sort of distant memory I have, but that was kind of it, and there was no, like, credit or anything.
'Cause what would you have been, like,
Uh,
3?
yeah, 2, 3.
So you probably don't have any other than the Lou Ferrigno memory. Is that
I
pretty much it?
That one, and then I have a memory of Michael Landon. I was shooting a scene, and it was fucking hot as balls at the studio. We were on an outdoor set, and it was
Mhm,
like a Western town set. I think it was the one that you see in Little House on the Prairie, like with the sort of like a Western town kind of thing.
Mhm.
And he was on the porch sitting in a chair, and they were limiting liquids. Like they wouldn't let us have liquids because we'd have to pee.
mhm.
And so I was like hot. I was so hot, and I was like, I didn't want to do this, and they would kept cutting, and like I guess I was fucking up the direction. So they kept reshooting, and then I was like, I'm so tired, I'm hot. And then the director was doing something, and Michael Landon, I was sitting on his lap, and he reached down and grabbed the lemonade that he was drinking, and he gave it to me and let me drink it. And he goes, "Shh."
Oh,
And I
that's
just knew, like, for me, it was so like a fond memory of that man.
Mm.
You
yeah.
know, it was like very loving.
That was back before they had probably laws to protect children from being purposefully dehydrated.
Well, I'm sure those laws were there, but you can always skirt shit, you know?
Well,
I,
how creative is that? Let's find twins so we can extend the day.
Right.
Not have a twin scene, but
No,
let's get
no.
more out of it.
Because I know now children are only allowed to work a certain amount of time, and that's one of the reasons they do twins, is so they
yeah.
can get that double
I'd
time or
never heard of
whatever.
that. That's
Yeah.
very
So
clever.
you had this whole little Hollywood life, and then you go up into Southeast Washington, right? Is that kind of
Yeah.
how it went? And then now
Yeah.
you're living up there.
From what I remember, it was like idyllic as fuck. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I remember we lived in two different homes, and it was just, I remember my like fond memories of my father, but my grandmother, my mom's mom, had the stroke while we were up there. And then my mom disappeared for a while. And I, honest to God, don't know how long it was. But looking back, the only real memories I have of my mom being up in Washington is her walking us to school. And I believe it was kindergarten. She would walk us to school, and there was this river embankment that we would kind of walk, either going or coming, I forget. But I remember her telling us about the ducks and the birds that were on the water, and then going to school, and we would come home and stuff. But I don't remember a lot. And then the fighting, I remember them arguing a lot. And I know that there was lots of financial pressure that was going on, and they were not happy. They did not communicate well, and it spilled out. It was very volatile at
Was
that.
there ever physical abuse?
Nothing that I saw.
Mm,
But there, I mean, when you're a little kid, and you don't have to see that shit to be terrified. You can hear it. Like I remember
right.
arguing at night, and just the sort of snipping at each other. Uh, you know, uh, the once I don't remember what the time frame, but my mom left, and I remember we moved from one house to the other. We lived in a duplex, and then when we moved into the other house, Mount St. Helens erupted.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. I
And I
remember.
remember at church, like, watching it for weeks, the plume and stuff.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
remember being at church and looking, I always remembered like being at a shipping dock, but I don't know why the fuck a shipping dock would be at a church. So I don't know. I might be confusing things, but I remember it erupting. And in the wake of that, all of us kids wearing like the Breaking Bad suits, and
Yeah.
then going outside and playing.
Wow. You must have been, you were
He was super
closer.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the only thing we had to do was, I was in Beaverton, outside of Portland, but we had ash in our grass. So when you mowed the lawn, you had to wear, like the mask people wore during COVID.
Hmm.
We would have to wear that when you'd mow the lawn, and then there was ash on the ground, but we didn't have to wear any suits. But you were much closer, I think.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't think, like, the time frame I'm not certain of. I just remember like this vividly, those sort of half dome swing or climbing things we used to have back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
I remember no one had fences in this area. All the yards ran together, and there was just like people's stuff here and there. There was that jungle gym there, and all of us kids were playing. And I just had this vivid memory of us hanging in this thing, like holding our hands and hanging upside down, and someone's like thing fell off,
Oh, wow.
Oh, like their mask or their
like the kind of helmet, I
Like an
yeah.
guess.
astronaut suit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it fell
Hazmat.
off, and everyone's like, "Oh shit!" Like scrambling to put it back on so they don't die.
Yeah.
Which
That's
I
funny.
don't think you would have died. I
I
know from the
Right,
Yeah,
but
just after it
as
was
a kid,
yeah,
over.
yeah. I
we
don't,
weren't. But was it scary? It was just
yeah,
so
yeah.
different, and um,
That was a crazy time because I'm a little older than you. I was born in 71. So I think when St. Helens blew, I think I was in either third or fourth grade. Because what you were like, you said like kindergarten or
yeah, I
first
think
grade, maybe.
kindergarten.
Yeah, so that was but I remember we could see it when we would be on the highway, and it was there for it felt like as a child that that plume was there for months.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, "Why is it still there?" It should I always thought as a child it blows up and it goes, but it just hovered and hovered. It was such a trip. So you said your mom left before that. Did you know consciously? Like, did your dad say your mom has left, we're getting divorced?
No, that not that I remember. I remember there being relief in the house, but there was also this sadness.
Mhm.
I remember he worked really early in the morning, so I remember it being dark and him getting us ready and then driving us to this babysitter or daycare or something and dropping all three of us off at this, and it was still dark. And I
Wow.
remember like that's sort of the theme. Like in that period, it was like dark and heavy. And I remember my dad taking us to, I don't know if they had it in Portland. I think it was called Big Al's Pizza or Big Bear Pizza, like a
Mm-mm.
sort of, I wanted to say like a Chuck E. Cheese, but like the old school pizza parlors with the big family style tables and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember going to this place and him we eating pizza, and he would ask them to give us root beer in the beer mugs.
Oh, cool.
And he would drink his beer in the mug, and we would have
Yeah.
root beer in the mug, and we were like his buddies.
That's
Right.
cool.
And that
Right.
was such I remember just and he would I don't know how the fuck he did it, but he would, shower us with Star Wars toys, like, the big, tall action figure ones, like, I remember coming home, and I don't know where the fuck we were, but we coming home, and on our my brother and I had bunk beds, and on our bunk beds were it felt like the whole fucking bed was covered with stuff. And we're
Yeah.
like, "What?" And I remember flipping our shit like, "What? It wasn't even Christmas or anything. Like, what the fuck? This is crazy."
Right.
And,
Right.
so I remember fondly, like, my we were really, really important to my father. He never said, "I love you" and stuff. Well, not to when he was older. He had a heart attack when I was a sophomore in high school
Oh, geez.
and almost died. No, I was a freshman. Sorry. Yeah. Um, but he never spoke it much. But like always knew he loved me, and he would like get stupid silent and like be like observing stuff, and like I could catch him, and he would be like looking, and he was just so fucking content to be around us boys.
That's a wonderful
Yeah,
feeling
totally.
because a
It
lot of
is, and I'm trying not to cry
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, no, because a lot of Gen Xers did not have that relationship with their fathers or ever experienced that feeling you're talking about that you knew you were important to him.
Well,
That
I say
like
that now, but I
right.
promise you, back then I felt incredibly invisible because of
Mm.
the finances. When we were in Washington and all the Star Wars stuff was happening, I'm assuming like there was some kind of abundance. But once everything blew up, we packed up and we moved, and it felt very abrupt.
You mean when they got divorced?
Yes, they were separated first, and apparently, and I only know this from the years later in my adulthood, talking to both of my parents. My mom had been gone for a while. She went down to Los Angeles to take care of my grandmother because after her stroke,
Mhm.
and a whole bunch of shit erupted in that. And they were on their way. They were separated, and they were not going to reconcile. But my dad always held on this hope to keep the family together and do what that's what men do, right? We're protectors, we're providers. And I remember him kind of moping and just being sad, like fuck, like I fucked up. And we initially lived with my mom, and my mom moved to Atwater Village, if you know Los Angeles. It At the time, it we were the only white people in the neighborhood.
Okay, so was it African American?
No, it's probably most likely Mexican, but
Okay. Yeah.
Hispanic.
Okay.
And in fact, the school we went to for first grade, there was a holiday program, Christmas program,
Mhm.
and I remember them putting in lines of English for us so our parents
Oh,
could hear something.
oh my
Oh,
gosh.
that's awesome.
That's actually adorable. Was this After the divorce or before you moved up to Washington?
This was right after we left Washington when they got separated, and we abruptly left Washington and when we moved into my mom's in her house in Atwater and we started school. So I think what happened is they decided, okay, we're fucking done. Like my dad was like, I'm coming back down to save the
Right.
marriage. And so
Okay.
we abruptly left and my mom had this house and I don't know what that was, but I remember my dad helping us move in and put all of our shit in this garage. But then there was a guy who lived in the front of the house and he set everything on fire.
He set everything on fire that was in the
Yeah.
garage?
Yeah, we like literally I remember them moving truck, we moved down and all the shit from the truck got put in this garage because like I don't even know why. And my dad apparently was living back in his childhood home with his parents.
So it was you, the 3 boys, and your mom, and kind of like was it like a duplex?
It was kind of, but in California in Los Angeles, they have like these sort of bungalow houses where there's no huge backyards, like a big yard, but there's houses like kind of staggered, like
Right.
outside apartments, kind of.
Okay. And
And
then you guys were behind this guy's,
yeah, his name was Clarence.
so your house was kind of behind Clarence's house.
Right. Our house was the farthest back off the main road, and there was like an access road, and there were, I think, 2 garages in some format there, but he was the one that set the fire.
It's
Had
crazy.
you not unpacked anything into your
Nah,
mom's home?
nothing,
So was it like
nothing.
the first night that you
Maybe a week, 2 weeks, I don't remember, but the shit was still in the garage because of that, I don't have very many baby pictures or anything. Like
Oh,
all of our
Wow.
shit got burnt up and no one had money to replace it. And that's kind of what began for us. I didn't have possessions.
and all your Star Wars stuff.
Everything, baby pictures, Star Wars, like all the shit was gone. And yeah, it was. I
Uh,
remember having like a metal lunchbox I got. I think it was I want to say it was an Indiana Jones one,
mm,
but that got taken away. We got into it. My brother and I, literally the only white guys in the white presenting people. And another caveat: when my grandfather died, um, we stopped being native.
Meaning it wasn't mentioned again?
Yeah, I always say we put the Indian back in the cupboard.
Okay. So that was even though your dad, so what did people just assume your dad was Hispanic?
Yeah, they always thought he was Mexican.
And he didn't correct them.
Not that I heard. I mean, he had to
Might have
belong
been easier.
somewhere.
Yeah. So when you guys were going to school, even though you have a decent amount of indigenous blood in you, you were totally white presenting.
My twin brother and I look. He looks just like me. I look white. I'm white
Right.
presenting, but
Yeah.
we're the only ones. I'm the only one of my brother and I. The only my other siblings don't look white.
Really? So
Dark hair and
you're
like
your little brother?
yeah. My little brother. He's my technically my half brother.
Okay.
And his father is Mexican. So yeah, he looks indigenous too.
So he's from your mom and he had a different dad?
Yeah, her second husband.
Okay. So but he lived with you, got you and your
No,
dad.
my youngest brother, we never really grew up together. I'm 9 years older than him.
Okay, so when you were comforting him, was that when he was
That was
visiting
my
her?
brother,
That was his other real.
my middlest brother.
Okay,
There's
uh,
3 biological kids.
Yeah.
My
okay,
twin
okay,
brother,
okay.
myself, and my younger brother. The 3 of us have always grown up together. But then we have a half brother, but he's my brother. I've never
Right, right, right,
but
right.
he's 9 years younger than me.
So out of the 3, what about you have the twins, you 2 are white presenting. What about
My
your
my other brother, no, he looks indigenous.
really?
And he's fucking huge. He's like
What a
six
trip.
foot, and
What a trip.
he's so much like my dad. In fact, people will see him or talk to him and be like, "Get the fuck out of here! You look just like Bob."
Wow.
Hmm.
So, he
Yeah,
do you resemble more your mom's side?
yeah, and I always thought I didn't belong growing up. And like I am so I'm technically the middle child
Mm,
in our family system.
By like a minute or two.
Yeah, 4 minutes, and my brother
Or
will not let me fucking forget it.
I'm
He lords
sure.
it over me, and I'm like, "Fuck off." 4 minutes, because honestly, if I'd have been born first, he'd have died because my umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck.
oh, wow.
So the doctor moved us so that he could be born first so he wouldn't die.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you
So
can hold that over his head.
Yeah.
I do.
He saved his life.
And
So,
I've been
okay,
saving his ass ever since, by the way.
right from the start. So you have a lot of trauma going on, obviously, because
Oh,
your parents divorced, separated.
parental traumas,
Yes.
Well,
gen
moving,
Moving. And
yeah,
then
a
all that shit.
fire.
Clarence
Yeah,
decided
the
just to be an
Clarence.
asshole for some reason and light all your stuff on fire.
Yeah, and honest to God, I remember Clarence, and he looks like your average gravy white guy. Like, like imagine a early 80s fat guy, white guy with a white t-shirt and like the painter khaki pants and black shoes. Like he total piece of shit.
Well, what was his
With the
problem?
I don't know
prototypical
from
pyro.
what my and I can't remember if this was my mom told me this or my aunt, my mom's sister, that Clarence was pissed that my mom. He assumed that my mom was loose because she was a single mom,
Okay. So
and
he's
he wanted to try to hook up with my mom, and she spurned him. She's like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And
oh
he
my
was like, "Oh yeah, light your shit on fire," because he was that
God.
stable. And funny, that's the male toxicity persists in our culture.
Oh, no kidding. Oh my God. Okay, so you guys have lost all your stuff. You're living with your mom. Your dad is at his childhood home. You're going to a school where you're the only white kids.
Hmm.
How long did you stay living there and in that school?
We only did 1 year there, and that summer there was some kind of custody arrangement, and I can't remember exactly what the custody arrangement was, but I remember my dad would come, and I remember this when we would get dropped off um, at my mom's house. I remember this longing in my heart, like I missed my dad, and like him going, like leaving, it was crushing.
Yeah.
But likewise, with my mom dropping me off to my dad's, the same thing. She would depart, and I would feel crushed. Uh, so I did not feel safe
It was almost
anywhere
like repeated abandonment on a regular
consistently.
basis,
And
consistently.
the my grandfather was still alive when this was going on. He still lived at that house, but he was getting sick. And when he was getting sick towards the end of his life, he reverted and he stopped speaking English. And he grew his hair out. My dad said he went native, like he returned, like he was preparing to die. And I
Huh.
remember that. I remember
Wow.
him, speaking to us in his native tongue. Um, I don't recall shit. Like I couldn't tell you any of the language. I'm part of me might remember shit if I hear it, but I remember him getting sick and dwindling, but during that, we would go visit. And I remember loving my grandmother. My dad's mom was like the fucking most amazing woman. Um, she was a great cook, and she was
Mm.
really tall. She was probably 5'10", 6 feet.
Wow.
Hmm.
And we
Wow.
called her Big Grandma. And my mom's mom was like maybe 5 foot tall, so she was Little Grandma.
And this is the grandma that's part Cherokee, right?
Yes, the
Yeah.
my dad's mom, and I mean, she just like big, huge glasses. She had shitty vision, but she sang like an angel and she cooked and she was just so loving. And I remember she was my safety.
Right.
Because when we went that summer, and I don't know what the particulars are, but my dad essentially kidnapped us. He never returned us.
Hmm.
So it was during a custody agreement where you're supposed to be visiting him and then he just didn't return you?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
5 or 6.
Was it during the school year or was it
No,
summer
it
you
was
said?
that summer.
And
Like,
so
we
where do you
went with him that summer, and, we just never went back. And
so
my
where do
dad, his family was really toxic. They hated my mother. They would tell us the craziest shit. These 2 aunts would be like, "Your mom's a whore. Your mom doesn't love you. She abandoned you," and all these things. Like, would say the most horrendous things, and, being a kid, you wanna please people,
yeah.
and, feeling really torn, but, when we got that summer, we never went back to my mom. They isolated her. Like, I remember them going out to the front lawn, gonna fight my mom.
Wow.
Well, did she not have, like, per the courts, didn't she have rights?
Well, yeah, but it didn't matter back then. She had no money for lawyers. She was, trying to keep her head above water. And, so subsequently in talking to her about it, she's like, I did everything I could, that I knew how to. They would not relent, and they had more collective resources,
Yeah,
and
I
so
guess
they won.
Were you still local?
No, they my mom lived in, Los Angeles still, like, in Atwater Village, and my dad lived in Orange County, if you guys know the
Sure. Yeah.
mhm,
geography.
So
mhm.
south.
So it was like, it seemed forever, as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to drive between them because of the traffic.
yeah. And also, I guess the only thing she could have done would be to call the police, which now that would work, but I don't think back then that would have even mattered.
Right, and honest to God, I remember the intimidation from my dad's family, like, really, she felt alone and isolated, and talking to her now, I was estranged from her for a long time.
For how many
Uh,
years?
oh, fuck. I mean, honesty, there's probably 2 or 3 different episodes of being estranged from her.
Mhm.
Um, but back then, she, like, left, but I remember her, like, fighting, and, like, we would do programs or something, and I remember her always being there and just, like, desperately trying to connect. But away from her, we got fed this stuff that she was such a horrible human and didn't love us and abandoned us. I adopted that, to the
Right.
point
You're a kid.
that now, I'm 50 fucking years old, and, my mom is dying, and I still struggle with that emotional connectivity. And, um, she and I have had very difficult conversations over the last 5 years,
I'm sure.
and, have had to reclaim, because, yeah, my dad's family robbed me of my mom.
Well, and it's hardwired, right, into your subconscious and into your system. What they did, they brainwashed you.
Mhm.
And so you're having to, and you're a therapist, so but you're having to get past all that to connect with her. That's an uphill battle, especially, and if you get triggered, you're brought right back. So it's like 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, 5 steps forward, 2
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
that takes commitment.
yeah. Well, and that too. I remember being a kid and feeling so fucking alone.
Yeah.
Once we got to the house, I don't know what the time frame, maybe 6 months. My grandfather died,
Mm,
and that's when the floodgates opened. Once he died, all hell broke loose. There was apparently he was the buffer, but he was also pretty violent. I found out later that he was physically abusive to his kids and to my grandmother.
okay. Was it
Um,
just to go back real quick, you were, like you said, they put the Indian in the cupboard or whatever. So when your grandfather grew out his hair and started speaking in his native tongue, was that the first time you were really exposed to that side of your family?
no, because we grew up with being identifying as indigenous. Like, from when I was a
Okay.
little kid, like, we learned the stories, and,
Okay.
that, my father would tell us all the stories, and, teach us things. I found out later, though, he would teach us some phrases of the mother tongue or Indian, And it wasn't true.
Uh,
And I don't know where the fuck he got it from, but I remember looking up and going, I'm going to fucking learn the Pawnee language. And our nation has a language program. And so I was like doing it. And I'm like, but wait, what about this? And he goes, I don't know what the fuck that is. And I'm like, but my dad told me this. And he said, no, man, that doesn't exist in our language. And I'm like, fuck.
That's funny. That's almost like when someone gets a Chinese symbol on their
Yeah.
as a tattoo and it says like toilet. So, or it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's gibberish. Like I've
Yeah.
seen
Well,
that where a lot of people say it's gibberish. It's gibberish. It doesn't
even
mean
better,
anything.
when we were kids, when going to school in Los Angeles, I remember I've always been registered with my nation, and apparently that back in the day that registered with the school district, and instead of they would by whatever California did, we had to go to an Indian school. So they
You
would
know,
take us out of class, all of us indigenous kids,
yeah.
regardless of what nation you were. They would put us all in this classroom, and then they would teach us our history. Like, but I remember taking this handout one day and coming home, and my grandfather was still alive, and I was so proud. And I'm like, Grandpa, look, da-da-da. And he looked at it and he goes, "What the fuck is this knee how bullshit?" And I was like, "What?" He said, "Do you realize that's from the Lone Ranger?"
Oh
They were
no.
teaching us movie Indian sign language and all that bullshit, this sort of homogenized Hollywood Indian, and that's what they were teaching us. And you had kids who were like from the desert, the plains, the eastern woodlands, the Pacific Northwest. Like they just put us all in and said, "This is what Indian is."
That's actually crazy. That is so
Right?
great. Yeah, it was it kind of like a period. Like I know where I went to
Yes.
school, there was a lot of Jewish kids, and so they would go out for an hour to their like to learn about their history and then
Yes,
come
that's
back and join
exactly. It
us.
was like a Indian
Okay.
school. They would take us all out and put us into this classroom and make us like we had to do a basket one time. I remember coming home and making this little fucking grass basket, and I was like proud of it. And I show it to my grandfather, and he's like, "We never made baskets. We
That's
hunted
great.
buffalo."
Yeah.
That's actually
Oh,
so funny. So you said once he passed away though, then you said he was violent before he like with your grandmother and his kids, but then the floodgates opened when he passed away. So what happened there?
when he died, I remember at his funeral we did ceremony. So we saged, and there was a ceremony for us to release his spirit so he could go on to the long journey home. And we did all of that, and then like it's like once that was done, it was finalized, and there was the white person funeral. Like there was going to be a funeral at the church, and I don't know what was going on around, but I remember seeing my two aunts, my dad's two sisters, fist fight each other on the front lawn.
Of the church?
No, at
Of
the
the funeral?
house.
Oh, at the house.
Yeah,
Okay.
they for whatever, I don't know why they got into a fist fight, and they were like fucking punching each other like men on the front lawn. And I remember all of us kids. There's myself, my two brothers, and then I have four cousins who we were all kind of raised collectively,
Yeah.
and we're all like sitting there like the fuck. And their mom is one of the sisters out there fist fighting, and when you know grief. They fist fought, and I don't know what else happened, but the youngest sister was married and lived away, but the middle sister and my dad lived in that house, and then we lived there. So there was my grandmother, my aunt, my dad, and then the three boys living in a three-bedroom, one bath house.
And was this
Wow.
the aunt that abused you?
Yes, because that's when I say the floodgates opened. After he died, then she became so mean and would be very physically abusive.
Like slapping you in the face, stuff like that?
Yes, and she attempted to kill me on two occasions.
By what, strangling you?
Yes, strangling was one of them, and the other time she was a big lady too. She tried to choke me out, strangled me one time as she was sitting on top of me, and I couldn't move. I remember like going to blackout, and I don't even know how the fuck I managed to get out from underneath there. And then another time she was on top of me, choking me out, and then a cousin handed her a can of Raid, and she sprayed that into my mouth, trying to poison me.
So the cousin was complicit in what was going on?
Yeah,
So, how old were you during this time period?
maybe 7, 8, 10. Because the
And
abuse happened over years. Because then I became the whipping boy, and at one point I realized that I don't know if I was obligated, but I was compelled maybe to sort of distract the bull, so I would get the horns and
mhm,
keep her away from the other kids.
all of them or just your brothers?
All of them. I mean, in fact, it was me and a cousin of mine. We would take the most of the brunt, or we would try to.
Do you know, was it just complete displacement of abuse onto you? Like, or was there something that triggered her about you, or
Um,
you were the one?
there was more abuse that went on. Um, a lot more. I don't know if maybe I think the two youngest. No, ma- I don't know if anyone was spared. Honestly, maybe you just got a different degree of abuse, but
Just
there was a lot of emotional abuse.
just this
Uh,
one aunt? Just from
the
her?
well, she was my primary, yes, but there was violence perpetrated by everyone, even my grandmother.
What about, your dad?
Yes,
Towards you
he
guys?
yes. He was, uh, strained and, like, I'm pretty sure was embarrassed that he was living it with his parents. But, yeah, he would be violent too, and, we got, like, the belt and, you know, yeah,
So
he was aggressive.
Do you think they had any idea what they were doing? Or was it just their way of life? And that's
I
not to make an excuse. I'm just curious.
I think, from what I gather, they got more from their dad.
yeah, so
So
generational
it's
trauma being
generational.
passed
Yeah.
Yeah,
on.
and, as a father now, I can see, and I've been able to go back into my life and through my own therapy work to reframe the traumas and make friends with it. Um, I don't hold ill against my father. I genuinely I miss him very much. He died in 2020. Um, yeah, I would do anything just to be his little boy for 10 minutes.
When did the abuse from your dad start, though? Was it during those years living in that house?
Well, okay, so I'll clarify abuse. So, there's the rampant, any kind of physical spanking, I think is abusive,
Mhm.
but moreover, the violence,
Right.
that happened, from what, if I remember correctly, after my grandfather died.
Okay, so up until then, he was doing the normal thing that a lot of us Gen X kids got, which was the spanking or the wooden
Yeah.
spoon or even the belt to some
Hmm.
degree. That was considered normal punishment to
Right.
us. But you're
Yes.
saying it ramped up in a violent way once
Yeah.
your
So
grandfather died.
after he died, I remember, uh, the neighborhood kids and like my cousins, they would prod my twin brother and I into fighting. Like they would put us in the backyard, and like I remember putting on uh, duct taped carpet remnants on our arms and legs, and getting trash can lids and sticks and metal pipes, and fighting literally like gladiators in the backyard for these cheering kids.
So you had been up until then, you had not been exposed to where that's normal. You'd been up in Southeast Washington. You were in
Um,
all these. Was this the first time where you were exposed to this type of situation where
no,
everything's
could
so
that
violent?
one year in Los Angeles when we were the only white kids, my brother and I got jumped a lot. So then we learned that, like, to fight.
Okay.
That was the first time I remember, like, I remember my dad even telling me, if that motherfucker hits you, then do this. And he like taught us how to throw punches, and
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
he's a former army guy, and he
Right.
was fucking big dude. You know, if, when we lived with my grandparents, I remember one time I was probably 11. I was at the gas or the corner market like 7-Eleven, playing Double Dragon, if you remember that video game. And, you used to put your quarter on the machines like, I'm next.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was there watching them, and I had my quarter, and the guy before me like died. And so my quarter, and I put it in and I'm playing, and a big kid came in and saw me and said, fuck you, and punched me, and my head hit the window. And I was kind of like stunned, like the fuck. And he's like, it's my game now. And I was like, okay. And so like I went outside, and then I started to cry, but I was embarrassed. So I ran, and I started to run home. And as I was nearing the house, my dad was outside washing a vehicle, and he saw me. And I like slowed down and tried to compose myself. And I guess he could tell I was crying still. And he's like, "What the fuck's going on?" And I'm like, "Nothing." I tried to like lie, and he was like, "No, what's going on?" And so I told him that big kid beat me up and took my game. And he said, "All right." And literally, uh, shorts, no shoes on, no shirt, cigarette in his lip, got into his pickup truck, made me get in, and we drove back to the little market. And as we pulled up, there was 3 or 4 kids out in front of it, and one of them was the kid that hit me. And my dad has this conversation with me inside the vehicle. He says, "All right, which one did it?" And I didn't want to say anything. And he said, "Which one did it?" And I like, "That one." And he's like, "Okay." And so he gets out, walks over, and he's kind of talking to him and smoking, lights another cigarette. And he tells the 2 or 3 other kids, like, leave.
Oh my God.
And they leave, and the one kid's like going to leave, and my dad puts his hand on his chest, and they're having a conversation, and then he points to me and he goes, "Get out here." And we go out to there. I'm standing there coy, and the guy that's like, "Is this him?" And I was like, "Yeah." And my dad said, "All right." And he just goes to the kid and he said, "So you like hitting little kids, huh?" And he like smacks him.
Oh my gosh.
"You like hitting people that are littler than you." Boom. And then like the knuckle tap on the head,
Yeah.
and he's like kind of roughing him up. And the kid's like fucking like terrified and like shitting himself.
Oh my.
And then he says to him, "You got 2 choices. You can fight him, or you can fight me."
Jeez.
Oh my God.
And I'm standing there like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Do I not get a choice? Like, I don't want to fight anybody, but
No, no.
so I had to fight this kid. And, I'm like throwing like bullshit punches. And my dad said, "If you don't really fight to the other kid, you're gonna fight me." And the fucking kid like starts going, and he hit me. And like, so I was kind of like, well, I gotta fucking fight him. So I went and I fought the kid. And I'm pretty sure he would have kicked my ass completely if my dad had not been there. But he put on a show, I guess. And then my dad was satisfied, and I got back in the truck and we left.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is trauma right there. That's
That was normal, right? Like
right.
that's what
Well,
sucks. I tell
yeah.
people I'm a pacifist by choice now.
Hmm.
I abhor violence. Growing up, violence was such a normative experience. I mean, going on into my teen years, yeah, I never turned down a fight. I never said no to a fight. Hell, I even went and was looking for fights at times, and was at one point in my life was pretty violent.
So, was alcohol pretty rampant in the house with your aunts and your dad? Would you say that played a part in all this violence?
Um, I don't know. I don't think, because I don't remember alcohol, because it was kind of a teetotaler because of my grandmother.
Mhm.
So I don't really remember alcohol like out front and visible.
Mhm.
Um, I don't remember it that much. I know that there would be times where when we were little, people would be drinking, and they would think it's funny to get a little, "Hey, here's grandma's drinking buddy," and a little kid drinking beers. And you know, like, I remember 4 or 5 years old going to adult parties and they thinking it's funny that little kids are drinking,
Mhm.
scotch on the rocks or whatever. And, I remember my mom's mom, I remember literally to my twin brother, "Oh, that's grandma's drinking buddy."
Wow. Okay.
So
So
it was a feature, and I knew people drank and got drunk, and we had a cousin who had fetal alcohol syndrome. He was born with fetal alcohol syndrome,
mhm,
and he was a lifelong alcoholic. I mean, he puffy face, and he would always every fucking party. He in fact made a jacket like a sports coat that had elastic liners on the inside of each side to hold 6 beers each.
no way.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a
Yeah.
genius, but that
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
feature. They would, but
hardcore.
when my dad got remarried in '88, they moved out of his childhood home, and then he and my stepmom got a big ass house in the San Fernando Valley, and it was like so bougie, like like fucking Jeffersons, right? Like moving on up. Like when we moved, in fact, when we moved there, I remember myself, my twin brother, and my middle brother. We all had our own room for the first time ever.
Was this due to a job change for him?
I think no, because he stayed where he was working. He worked for Boeing at the time,
So did
and so
she come from money?
my stepmom did.
Okay.
My stepmom came from like they her parents were really wealthy.
Okay. And
Like,
then
they had a
did
house in Bel Air and all that stuff, like, they were and I thought they were fucking awesome people, I loved them, but her dad worked on the Manhattan Project and knew Oppenheimer, and he was one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics. Like, he
wow.
literally wrote the book on quantum mechanics, um,
Wow.
and he was he was a good guy, but, when they did that, uh, we got our own rooms. And I remember the first night, I could not sleep. I was terrified
Right.
because I just spent what, so maybe 7 to 8 years living with my two brothers and my dad in a tiny room,
Well,
with bunk beds. Then my dad slept in one of the bunk beds, and my brothers and I would take turns sleeping on the top bunk or on the floor.
and also in an environment of violence too. You're
Yeah, and
you're
with no possessions, like, we went to a Lutheran private school where you had to wear uniforms,
mhm.
and so literally we had remember those old L-shaped bunk beds?
Yes.
There was, like, a little closet on the back of it, and I remember in that little closet, there were uniform shirts and pants. They weren't mine, they were ours. Like, in the morning, we would go to this place and get a pair of pants and a one of the uniform shirts, and then we had a drawer of socks and a drawer of underwear, and there was nothing that was mine. I would go and get a pair of socks. I would go get a pair of underwear. Maybe shoes were, like, the only thing that I had, but I didn't have possessions. I had no toys, no books. We went to a library once, and I had that Macbeth book I checked out, uh, until I got married.
Oh, wow.
They're
Like,
chasing you.
right, and now I wish I
Your
still
book
had
bag.
it, but I remember rereading that Macbeth book, just yearning for something different.
Hmm.
So you're living in this environment with violence. You have nothing that belongs to you. With your dad and your brothers in this room with bunk beds, and you're estranged from your mom because you've been told she's all these horrible things.
Mm, yeah,
And
it
then
was very isolating.
very isolating. And your way of coping, I assume, was through violence. Like you said, sometimes you would actually go look for a fight.
Well,
Did you?
that wasn't then. When I was little, that time, I was so withdrawn. Like,
Okay.
I remember, like, trying to be invisible, and I really fell into daydreaming,
Mm,
you
like
know,
disassociating?
it's so hard,
Yeah.
disassociating like crazy. I remember pretending I was different, like I was a bird, and I remember swinging on swings because we weren't allowed to be latchkey kids because apparently we were too much trouble. So we were not allowed to stay at home. So I went to school early, at that private school, and
Mhm.
I was there late. Literally, we were always the first kids to dropped off and the last kids to be picked up. If people even remembered to pick us up, there were so many times where we got forgotten,
So what would
and
happen? The school would call?
the school would call somebody, and somebody would come. Like I remember getting picked up by total strangers, and it was like my cousin's friend
Oh my
would come
god.
get me, and oh hell, a handful of times teachers would drive us home.
Wow. So you I mean, you were dealing with so many things there. So when you say you did not feel safe, it's you had nothing to hold on to. There was no the only consistency was trauma, it seems.
Yeah, and it was so normalized. I mean, I look back at my recovery, and that was the biggest component for me to first accept that, yeah, I had fucking trauma.
Yeah.
And then to go, well, that's not normative, Ryan. You can have different. Just because it was doesn't mean it has to be. But I didn't know any of that, and just the being bombarded with all of these difficulties because there was economic hardship. So the scarcity is the thing that always, I remember there was always this scarcity, but I look back now and I've been able to reclaim parts of it. There were joy. It just took forever to fucking remember the kindness and like Michael Landon's story. I look fondly at that, and there were just pockets of people that were kind to me that I hold on to, and not that my parents were totally utterly horrible. It just they had hardships too. I look at it now more as a product of our system.
Right.
The systemic injustice. It took my mom and wouldn't let her be a mom. It took my dad and wouldn't let it. The tribute was too much, so they had to pay all this time just to keep afloat or whatever. And I know my mom wanted to be more present, and I know she loves me,
Yeah.
but they weren't able to be the people that they wanted to be, and that's a systemic issue. That part of me now, I'm very socially justice minded. Um, I That's part of why I do what I do. My hope is to help people find they're healthy, so that we can end all this bullshit. You
Right.
know,
Right.
I when I first started my practice, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But I was so desperate to no longer work in agencies. I was just burnt out that I was kind of my therapist at the time was like, if you don't get out of agency work, I'm going to fire you. And I'm so grateful for her for pushing me. And in fact, she said, okay, my wife is going to talk to you. And she helped me set up my practice. She's going to walk you through it. And she literally did. Like, it was crazy. So collusion of ethical boundaries, right? Like we
Yeah.
were fucking dual relationship all over the place. But she helped me do it, and I'm so grateful because I'm almost 5 years into this and going, I have never been happier.
That's
And
wonderful.
I get to help people find um, this space that I found in healing. And I'm so amazed at like our human ability to be present in all kinds of situations and to heal. Our bodies want to heal. We have
Yes.
to do a lot of work to impede that healing, and that's what I try to help with my patients is to hold space and let them find their story, their voice, and quite literally, I think me saying I'm grateful for what transpired is not the whole story, but I do feel a gratitude. It was wrong. The adults in my life failed me, but I get what happened. Hell, the aunt, um, she was horrible to me, and I was estranged from her for a long time. And when I had kids, my when we first found out, my tell my parents, and I hadn't talked to this aunt for years. And my parents told her, and she found out, and my dad gave her my phone number,
Wow.
and she called me, and I answered it because I didn't know, and I was like, "The fuck!" So I ate shit, and I remember going right back to being a little kid, and I was fucking anxious and scared, and so I acquiesced, and I'm like, okay, yeah, here's my mailing address, and yeah, okay. But when I hung up, like I fell apart, and I'm like, and my wife had never seen that
Yeah.
because, and that's part of my story. I never told her.
Oh, that was the first time that you told your wife about this aunt and what happened to you?
Yes, she knew that I had a rough go with stuff, but she didn't know a lot of the details.
Have you ever
Uh,
confronted your aunt?
well, she's dead now, and the last time I did try to, I told her and I confronted her face to face. She denied everything and told me I made all the shit up, and I was like, "And we're done. Go fuck
Yeah,
yourself."
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at
A-
that point, absolutely.
I
And
have a question.
then,
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, I I don't wanna go back too far, but what is agency work? What you said you were doing agency work.
Agency work is when like a therapist or social worker works for like a community mental health organization,
Okay.
or
Alright.
like they work in community. Um, if we treated people better, I'd be for it. And which sucks, is because we don't do good mental health work in this country at all.
Yeah.
We're an afterthought. But mental health care is I would say at least on par with physical health care. But then again, we fuck ourselves over with physical health care too.
Yeah.
So
And you're probably prescribed to a path you have to take, or there's guardrails or whatever.
yeah, because agency work is never funded appropriately.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
look at the block grants from good old Reagan era, get rid of state hospitals, which needed to happen, but the original system was never funded even anywhere near half.
yeah,
So they destroyed everything that we had, and it did need to get destroyed, but we never rebuilt it.
No, it's true.
yeah.
It's
And
true.
and
And
here
I'm
we are now with,
You saved a bunch of money, though.
I would
Yeah,
gladly give that money back. I
yeah,
don't need I personally I don't mind paying taxes and shit. I want roads. I want schools. I want robust public services. That's
right.
that's what we're here for. The commons strive together. I get it's exhaustingly frustrating to see how shitty we are to each other. I can't but help look around and see hurting little boys and little girls, and all these adults pretending to be strong and masculine or whatever. No, you fuck you. You're masking all kinds of shit.
Well, I think as there's a in our generation, as we're hitting midlife, I think there's a significant amount of us that are getting mental health, are going for therapy and getting help with our mental health now, and recognizing and acknowledging our trauma for the very first time ever and putting words to what happened to us and doing things like EDMR and
Hmm.
I said that right, and using
EMDR.
EMDR, thank you. EMDR and other tools to kind of go back and rewire the trauma and all that stuff. So I think there is a strong group of us that are doing that. And then there's the other Gen Xers that are like, we're tough, rub some dirt on it. We don't need anything. Blah, blah. You
Sit
guys
there,
are a bunch,
Tesson.
yeah, exactly. But I'm hoping through those of us who are using our voice to bring light to the trauma that at least our generation, a lot of us had shared experiences of that on different levels, right? Like I had trauma too, but it's way different than your trauma, but it still is trauma, right? I'm hoping that that will help with a cultural shift in how mental health is addressed.
Do you know, honestly, when I reached out to you all, I wish I knew what the fuck my impetus was. I have no idea. I found you guys and I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Like it was like like you walk through a crowd and you see, cause I'm an old school punker,
Oh, cool.
there's not a lot of us left.
Yeah,
And I
true.
like, you walk through a crowd and you see an old crusty punk and I'm just like, fuck yeah, look at, we survived.
Yes,
Cause on the
yes,
real, I never thought I was going to get old.
yes.
Oh,
And when
yeah.
I hit 30, I turned 30. I was a missionary in Kenya, and I turned 30 there. And I remember on the day of my 30th birthday, I got detained by bandits.
No way.
Yeah.
So you
This
Where
is
got
the
were you?
God's honest truth.
in Kenya, you turned 30 and then you were like kidnapped?
On my 30th birthday, I'm
Yeah,
out in the
that's wild.
field, and we were looking at some water project to look, hey, is it worth reclaiming? And we're there and kind of looking around the site. And when we were coming back, we saw elephant tracks, and we're like, "Fuck that!" Because you don't ever want to be anywhere between water and elephants. You'll get killed.
Because
They'll trample you.
okay. So you're if the water is between you and the elephants, or you're between
You're
the
in their
water and the
path.
Yeah,
elephant?
if you're in their path, you're
Okay,
fucked.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Got it.
So,
Got it.
my Kenyan brother was there with me, and like we're hanging out, and I learned if he fucking tells you to run, don't say shit. You fucking run.
Yeah.
Like just do what he says. He'll keep you alive. And so we're like sitting there, and he got kind of nervous, and he turns to me and he said, "Hey, like let's go." And I'm like, "Okay, we're going." So I'm walking with him, and we get back to where the truck is, and I'm like, "Okay, there are other people here. That's fucking weird." Because we're out in the middle of fucking nowhere. This is in like north western Kenya, like semi-arid. It's fucking desolate as shit. In fact, part of it, the Uganda didn't want it, Kenya didn't want it, Ethiopia didn't want it, Sudan didn't want it. So it was like this sort of lawless place that had a fucking million plus population refugee camp.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
So it was like completely lawless, and the UN didn't give a fuck as long as they can keep that camp safe.
Right.
They're good, but so all kinds of crazy shit. So we got detained by this group of people, like the whole fucking 9 yards, like with the fucking machine guns and the
Oh,
mismatched clothing and shit.
oh God.
And so they're like talking to them, and I didn't understand the language they were speaking. I only knew Swahili, and not very well at that. So I'm trying to listen in, but I was like, okay, he's not anxious, so I'm not going to be anxious. And then but at that point too, I was like, you know what, fuck it. If they're gonna kill me, fuck it, kill me. I don't give a fuck.
Right.
But they realized who we were. Oh fuck, these guys don't have money. Their agency is broke. And so they're like, oh fuck, we chose the wrong guy, wrong white guy to kidnap.
Yeah.
And then Matua said something kind of offhand, like, "Hey, it's his birthday," and they were like, "Ah!" And then it turned into the fucking funniest shit. Then they took us to some bush bar, and they're like, "Hey, you want a beer? It's your
No.
birthday."
That's wild.
So it was
Oh,
it was like this really weird thing. But for me, I was not afraid. Never,
right.
not once was afraid. I'm like, fuck it. But then my favorite, they were trying to get me a prostitute.
Uh,
It's my birthday after all. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm good. I'm
yeah.
I'm a missionary. Like
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
good. I don't need a prostitute. I'm good. But then
That's
like
funny.
other people coming like, hey, let's show off. The white people are Mzungu. So they're like, hey, this is our Mzungu. Like I was like their token. It was
Like,
fucking awesome.
That's hilarious.
And
like
I
a
remember like
trophy.
living it up. But in the wake of that, we were driving back and I'm like, fuck, I turned 30. What the fuck am I gonna do now? Like, what are you gonna do with your life? And at that point, uh, I had gotten sober in 2001. August 27th, 2001 was the very first day I went to college, like full time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm gonna really do it this time. Because I fucked around and went to college and like took a class here and there, but would always withdraw or fail. Like I would give up when shit got tough. I was like, "Fuck it, I'm stupid," because that's what was told to me growing up. Oh, you're dumb. Because
Right.
I have dyslexia,
Mm.
undiagnosed until I was a senior in high school,
Oh, geez.
and I have ADHD, undiagnosed until I was 46.
Oh, yeah. You did not have a chance. Well, I was going to ask you. You said in '88 you moved into this beautiful home with your stepmom and dad. You have your own room. That had to have been kind of a cult. Like you said, you had trouble sleeping, but kind of a culture shock to go from the violence. You're stupid. The poverty, and now you're in this beautiful life. And how old were you?
Um, so I was in '88, so I think I was 13.
Okay, so that's like eighth, ninth grade, something like that.
Eighth grade, yeah, because I did eighth grade there, but I remember seventh grade sucked for me. It was the first time in a long time that we were going to a public school,
Mm,
and I did not fit at all in this. And my twin brother went sideways and became a popular kid,
mm,
and I became a wallflower. And my best friend at the time, he and I were at the religious school together. And the very first day of school, crossing the street, he got hit by a car
Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
and ended up being, he didn't die, but he was fucked up and he was gone. I did not see him again.
Ugh.
He, in fact, his house was like an oasis for me. I would go spend the night. His mom was a single mom, and she had all these fucking rabbits, in this apartment, and had these cages. But I remember going over there and feeling loved, and just like I loved going over there, and I loved hanging out with his family. It was him, his older brother, and his mom. And I don't know what the rest of the story was or is. But I loved going over to his house. I loved his mom was fucking awesome. And I felt seen, heard, and valued going there. So it was like an oasis for me. I looked forward so much going there. And when he got hit, I didn't know he got hurt. I just knew he didn't show up. But then I heard
Mhm.
later, like, oh, he got hit and almost died and had the neck traction and stuff. So the
Oh
whole
my
first
goodness.
semester, he was out.
And you didn't
And
know where he was?
no, and back then, uh, we lived just far enough away. Like I couldn't walk to his house. I couldn't tell you how to get there. So it was like that distance was so insurmountable.
Right. And
And then,
there
sorry.
was there was no way, it's not like now where you could find out through your phone or social
Right. There
media.
was zero.
It
No
was,
one told me
Yeah.
shit. I heard
radio
through the
silence.
grapevine that he got hurt. And then, so like, well, I don't have any friends, and kids were mean to me, and I was just like, I just quiet. And I remember going, I'm not talking anymore. And I literally did my best to become invisible. I didn't talk. I chose not to speak at that school. I'm like, I'm not going to talk. I did say I will answer teachers' questions, but I disappeared. And meanwhile, my brother kind of became popular and was like a skater kid and had did his own shit. And I became quiet and I used to hide. We had these different like reading periods, and I would hide because I didn't want to go play football or anything in the library, where I met a Filipino exchange student. And so I taught him English.
That was 7th grade.
Yeah. And we would walk home, and he lived closer to the school than I did. And I would go to his house on occasion. And when I would go to his house, I think it was his older brother had pornography on openly, like it was fucking MTV.
Oh my god.
And so I would go there, and I'm like burgeoning in, puberty. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no one's told me shit. I come from a purity culture to say, your body's sinful. You're going to burn in hell. And, shit's happening to me. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? No one to talk to. I go into this kid's house, and I'm like, the porn. And then I have physiological reactions, and I'm like,
right.
what's wrong with me? Oh my God, and no one can like tell me anything. And I felt so horrid. And I'm like, I'm gonna fucking burn in hell. Like I am such a piece of shit, um, that I used to pray to God that I would become famous so I can get on TV and ask forgiveness to everybody just to make sure that I got everyone covered.
Oh my goodness. So was that the religious aspect, was that from your dad's family?
Yes, and it was weird. It was Presbyterian early on, but then when my grandfather died, it became this weird, like sort of homeschooled folky kind of thing that was supplemented by the church at the school I went to was a church school.
Mhm.
So we would go there when we had to. And my dad on occasion every once in a while would like, we're going to church, and take us to that church. Or my mom would say, "You guys need church in your life." So when we would go visit her, she would take us to this Lutheran church. So very loosely affiliated, but it was mostly this sort of folky Christianity that was used. Uh, the TV Jim Baker guy was,
Okay.
my grandmother watched him religiously. In fact, lost part of her pension doing the PTL bullshit.
Oh, wow.
Oh my god.
But it was sort of supplemented like that. So I grew up in this really weird, um, uh, like evangelical charismatic thing, like where I had to constantly worry about salvation, and that, I was all like sin. I was just fucking sinful and an utter piece of shit. And I had to like grovel and beg Jesus for forgiveness, and you couple that with the abuse, I was convinced I was an utter disposable piece of shit.
Did you ever think about suicide?
Yes, a lot.
Did
And
you ever
I'm
try?
certain I didn't attempt because I was afraid
You're
of
too
burning in
afraid.
hell.
Yeah.
Were you
So I
afraid you
didn't, but I would
Yeah,
pray all the time, like I'm good. I didn't want to live.
right.
And
Uh,
towards that, the seventh grade year, as that went on, there was, and back then, if you got reduced or free lunch, you had to work in the cafeteria.
Oh, jeez.
So I did that, but my brother was embarrassed. He was a cool kid.
Mhm.
So I took 2 shifts. I worked lunch and breakfast so that he could get meals.
Did he appreciate that?
Probably not.
Have you guys ever talked about that?
No.
I mean, that's pretty amazing you did that. That
Well,
you
I'll be honest, there was some selfish too, because those lunch ladies, they took me under their wing. They knew
Mhm.
where I came from, and they
Yeah.
could see, like, I wasn't a robust kid. So they would feed me all the time. Like, they would take care of me. I would go in the morning and they would make sure I ate, and they would, like, feed me. And then on the Fridays when I would go, they'd say, "Stop by on your way home." And they would always give me like a thing of food.
So they became a safe space for you.
They were, and I don't know any of their names. I don't even remember faces. I just remember, like, the love that I felt from them
Yeah.
and those chocolate chip cookies. You know, t
So was your dad how did your dad meet your stepmom? Was that going on during the 7th grade year?
um, I think I know my dad dated sparsely over our time there, and there were a couple women that he would bring us around, but he mostly kept us isolated from his dating life,
Mhm.
which, honest to God, I appreciate. It's probably one of the healthiest things he ever did.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but he wanted to marry one of the women and introduced us to him, but she was a little bit older than him. And from what I gather, um, she didn't want to raise more kids.
Mm.
And my dad was like, they're non-negotiable. And so that relationship ended. And then my stepmom and him, they were like friends. And my dad was a sappy romantic. My stepmom calls him her sweet man. And that's actually the name of the book. Well, Sweet Boy is what I called it. I'm writing a sort of pseudo autobiographical book that I've been working on for the last 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, I'm kind of writing it to my kids,
Yeah.
but I put it down because these days is just so heavy. I don't have the energy to pick it up right now. It's not right now, but um, they met and he romanced her, his curmudgeony old ways, and they they were married for over 30 years, and they were so, I mean, they weren't perfect, but he loved the shit out of her. He loved her so much, and she loves him, and even to this day she misses him. And you know uh
How was
eh,
she with you?
um
With the 3 of you? Was she a
I
safe
think
space?
honest to God, I think I have a stepsister, and it was just her and my stepsister. And part of me like, what the fuck were you thinking, dating this fucking crusty man with these 3 boys? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Because we were mean. We were so mean when we got introduced to that house. My stepsister just had graduated high school and was going to college. So she lived at home for like a year, but then moved out and had her own place. And, for the most part, I didn't really grow up with her at all. We were in very
Mhm.
different stages of life. I was starting 8th grade and she was starting college.
Yeah.
So very different, but she was a very strong advocate for us. I remember her, if my dad raised his voice or anything, she was like, "Fuck you. You can't treat these boys like this." Like, she was a really good advocate for me. And, I know she loves me. But I think that I mean, hell, maybe she'll hear this and know that I love her very much. But I don't know how to be a sibling like that.
Did
Right.
they
Right.
soften your dad at all? Did he kind of chill out a bit?
Yeah. And the heart attack, too.
Mm.
He almost died my freshman year. In fact, I was in wrestling. I'd played football and I fucking hated playing football, but my dad loved it and I was decent at it. And so I did it for him because it got me his attention.
Mhm.
But I fucking hated playing football. I seriously, I remember wanting to quit so hard and I tried to quit one time and he brought me to the coach and then the coach and him shamed me and said, tell your teammates you're quitting on them.
Oh my god.
And I was like,
No.
just kidding.
Yeah.
JK.
Oh my gosh.
April Fools.
That sounds
Right, suckers. But then we were playing in a game, and I remember trying to. I played center, and I was trying to put my head down and take a helmet to the neck to get a neck injury.
oh my gosh. You just lived in this self-sabotage, disassociative state.
For real, like
Forever.
I did not give a fuck about myself.
Right.
I did not have any value or worth whatsoever. I just like whatever. Uh, but I did eventually quit. Well, with help, I tanked my grades,
Mm,
and then I was ineligible to play.
right. Could you
So
still would
I
you,
got help.
did that take away all athletics though, like wrestling too?
It did, unfortunately. Then I worked my ass off to get back so I could wrestle because I loved wrestling,
Yeah.
which I thought was like the WWE.
Mhm.
No.
No, it was not, but I loved it and I loved the camaraderie. You know, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it very much. Um, but I went. My dad used to pick me up from practice every day and would embarrass me. Like the cheerleaders practiced kind of in the area, and he'd sit there. And when I came out, he would honk and whistle. I'd be like, "Hey, Ryan's dad, right here. What's up, ladies?"
Oh
Like
my
he
god.
was that guy.
Oh man.
It
You
was so embarrassing.
men could never now. Never.
No,
On
well,
school. No.
he
No.
would go. We would go eat at a restaurant, and he'd like an African American waitress would take his order and be like, "What can I get you?" And he'd say, "I want my this and this, this, and black coffee. Like I love my women."
Oh my
My
And
god.
I'm like, I mean, so racist and
Oh yeah.
inappropriate, and but then I like, and you know him as a human, and he was one of the most like he when he got to a position of power at his job, he literally would make sure he hired people of color and single moms explicitly.
Yeah.
And I found out at his death that he was the guy, like he hired a lot of single moms. And back then, like they were like federal contractors, so they got paid once a month
Hmm.
and they weren't going to get paid for 1 or 2 months. So he would always get little gift cards to the grocery store and the woman would come to her desk and there would be a little card with that gift card in there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he was such a kind person.
Right.
I like to look at he's what I wanted to be, but he didn't get the opportunity to do his work.
Right. Right.
You know, he was a kind and loving man. He was a good man
Yeah.
in a rough circumstance.
Right.
So I
You
try to remember that for me, dude, don't don't make that choice. You can choose different. I can hurt. You know, I can be angry, I can be upset, I can feel like I want to blow up and I can still pause and I can do different.
How
yes.
did you learn to do
Yes.
that though? Was it just therapy or your own therapy talking or you becoming a
Oh,
therapist?
I made so many mistakes in my life. Yeah,
So you're a work in progress.
I still am, you know,
Yeah.
I fuck shit up all the time. Um, I I don't know if I could point it to any one thing. It was like a series of things. Literally, I don't believe in Christianity at all anymore. I reject the title primarily because of the way my indigenous people were treated. But you know, I went to seminary. I was a pastor for 15 years.
Well, wait,
Like,
yeah, before we get, so what, I don't want to jump too far because I want to know what that part of the journey is. So you're wrestling in high school and you got your grades back up. Your dad has the heart attack. So he's mellowed out a little bit, you
well,
said.
the heart attack thing. So all every night I could count it like clockwork. My dad was a creature of habit. I'm waiting for him and I get out of wrestling and he's not there. I'm like, what the
Mm,
fuck? Like, where the fuck is he? You know, there's no payphones or anything back then.
right.
And so I'm like standing there like, what the fuck? And now I'm feeling abandoned and hurt. And I'm like, motherfucker, fuck you. You fucking forgot me. Cause they did used to forget me when I was a little kid.
Right. You talked
And
about
so
that.
I went right back to that well and I'm like, fuck. And so like I angry ran home. It was like 2 miles, 3 miles to my house. I was so fucking pissed and I was ready to like, when I get home, I'm gonna fuck him up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not joking. I was ready to fucking fist fight my dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck him. I was so hurt. And then I get to the house and there's no one there. There's like zero. And I'm like, what the fuck? And there was the old rotary phones in the kitchen, that we used to have
Yeah.
with the long ass cords.
Oh, yeah.
Right there was a whiteboard next to it. And on that fucking whiteboard was, at the hospital, your dad had a heart attack.
Oh, my
Hmm.
God.
Like
That's
that's I
so Gen X. That is so Gen X.
and I'm like, what the fuck? And
Yeah.
no, didn't tell me what hospital and nothing, but I assumed there's a hospital across the hill from us. So I took that anger and I like ran up the fucking hill through all the brambles and shit over the hill and like as a crow flies, made my own path, jumped fences to get to that hospital. And I get there and I'm like terrified.
Yeah.
And I get there and I run into the ER and I can go and I'm like, this is my dad. And they're like taking me back and they're trying to prepare me to what to find. And I'm not listening to shit. And I'm fixated. Now I see this glass that's sort of dark and I could see him. And I see on the outside his name written on the placard and he's connected to machines. He's not moving. And I'm like, fuck, my dad's dead. And that all the anger just left and the craziest fear that I have ever felt to that point overcame me. And I'm like, I can't do life without him. And then I ran into my stepmom and she was like, what the fuck happened? And they tell me, and I'm like, fuck. And there's my brothers are there and everyone's just like, then they tell us, hey, he's going to live, but he had to have an open heart surgery. He had a triple bypass that time.
Wow.
And it was in the wake of that he became so different. Like that him almost dying like that. He in the wake of that, he would tell me he loved me a lot. He would like hold me, and I loved that. But I feel guilty because the man he was, it dimmed. He was such a Paul Bunyan figure,
Yeah.
just cavalier and just fucking massive man. Uh, all that stopped. And he was feeble and weak and human, no longer a superhero.
Let
But
me ask you, did he become feeble and weak, or did it just he changed and your perception of him changed?
yeah, that's probably more accurate. That he became definitely more human, more
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I would never have traded it. I'm so grateful that he did become kinder to me and would tell me he loved me and kind of soft. Like after that, he never physically disciplined me. Never. Like
What a
never.
change. It's almost like I mean, I'm not saying this in a religious way, but it's like he went through a spiritual experience.
No,
Like,
I think it was like
shifted.
him going through because he almost died
Yeah.
and going. I don't know if you've ever encountered people, especially back then. That was in what 90. God, I can't remember if it was 89 or 90, but they didn't have the technology they have now is open heart
Yeah.
surgery,
Yeah.
and he got cut open from his throat down to his abdomen.
Wow.
And I remember him sitting in his chair, and he was just so weak he couldn't do a lot.
Yeah.
And like that's when I picked up all the chores. Like we had a pool, so I took over the pool. I took over. There was ancient solar panels on the top of the house. I took over the maintenance of that. We had like a half acre of original citrus orchard from way back in the days of California. I took care of that like it was terraced. I took over all these physical things and he just couldn't do anymore. Um, and it was like I was glad to do it.
Did your brothers help?
Um, no,
And you're the oldest, right?
no.
No.
No, no, you're the
4 minutes
middle. You're
younger.
the middle.
I'm
Yeah.
4 minutes younger, but that
4 minutes younger. That's right.
when we were in seventh grade and my brother became the cool kid, he started doing drugs.
Okay.
So at 12, he started doing coke.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's young.
And
That's
That
very young for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's where he started.
Right.
And his
Wow.
Yes.
trajectory was just,
Right.
so, lifelong addiction issues.
Okay.
When you
And
say that's where he started, it's not like he started smoking weed and then moved to coke. He just hopped right in the
yeah,
fast lane.
yes, and we had a proximity to fame.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much but we had a connection to proximity from back in the day, and that person um, was sort of famous.
Okay.
They were a professional athlete,
Mm,
and they traveled the world doing this thing. And that proximity brought all kinds of famous people to our house.
mm.
And my brother hung out with them, and that's how he got exposed to drugs.
Was this through your stepmom's family?
No,
Oh,
from
okay.
my family of origin.
Okay.
I honestly, I don't want to say so
No,
much.
that's fine. That's fine. I just was trying to connect it. Okay. Okay. So you have now taken over the physical labor that your dad can no longer
Yeah.
do because of the heart attack.
Mhm.
You're in high school, and in your mind, is college something that was ever discussed in your home? Was it ever something like you're going to go do this as a
Mm,
normal thing?
sort of. Um, when I don't remember how old I was, but my mom's dad, the man that my grandmother married, it's not her bio dad, but that's her dad.
Right.
When my brother and I were born, we were the first boys
Mm.
born into the family. And, back in then, boys mattered more or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but moreover, my brother and I were 2 or 3 months premature. I was 4 pounds 11 ounces. He was 4 pounds 1 ounce when we were born, and we spent the first like month in the incubator.
Wow.
But so we were kind of miracle, like, oh fuck, they even survived.
So
Uh,
what were you guys? You were you made it past the 25-week mark, right? What were you? How many weeks?
I don't know,
You were a month or
a
two?
month or two premature. I know we were both born blind and jaundiced, and had to be in the incubator. So with like little masks on.
Yeah, you guys were like real premature little. That's
Yeah, I mean, and
amazing.
right. And I'm 6'1" and 220 pounds. Yeah, I'm like, I think I overcame something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't miss many meals. Um, but they poured into us, and my grandfather, like, he just adored us. Like my
Oh.
mom's dad, uh, he just adored us, and he set up like a bank account or something when we
Mm,
were born. And I remember hearing about it here and there, but it was always kind of in the peripheral. Well, when I think I was 15 or 16, we were at the bank, and I was like, "Hey, mom, I want to check the balance of my bank account." And she was like, "What bank account?" And I said, "The one Grandpa made for me." And she said, "Oh, honey, that's gone."
Mm.
And I was like,
oh,
"What?" Said, "Yeah, I used that a long time ago. If you want to go to college, you're going to have to get a scholarship." And I was like, "Well, fuck that."
yeah.
So I know I believed I was stupid. I believed I was a horrible piece of shit. So no, I wasn't going to college. That's what rich people did. That's what other people did. It wasn't me. But my stepmom was a college person. She went to UCLA and UC Davis. Like, she was fucking super different. My father never did, and my sister was going to college. So yeah, it was out there. And
Yeah.
at some level, my parents were like, "Yeah, you're gonna go to college." Like, it was kind of expected, but it never seemed realistic to me. Like, all right, I'll fucking go, but I hate school. In school, I'm stupid. Why waste that time? But
Mhm.
the ultimatum we were all probably given is, if you're going to live here, you got to get a job, or you're going to go to school, or then. And that was probably the best part most of us got.
Yeah.
So I went to junior college. Well, first, my twin brother left LA and moved to upstate New York with my mom and her new husband so he could sober up.
Okay.
And I had never lived without him. So I followed.
I was gonna say that's a big deal for you guys to be separated, right?
Yeah, we'd never ever been apart. So I was like, fuck that, I'm going. So I followed him, and I went to a junior college there. in upstate New York and got a fucking 4.0.
Mm.
Well, you had been diagnosed with dyslexia by then, right? You said senior year.
Correct, but I never got treatment. Nothing.
You never learned how to cope with
No,
your
just
learn.
me. I raw dogged it. I like would try to, and it's like I love reading. Even to this day, I read vigorously, but I didn't know how. So I learned that if I took a piece of paper and I like, covered in, I could hack essentially, and I could do stuff, but I still would. It was a lot of effort, and there was a teacher there at the junior college that I was like, I'm dumb, and she's like, you're actually not. And if I'm being 100% honest, I was young, 18, and she had to have been in her mid 20s. I totally thought I was going to hook up with her. I'm like, oh, she totally wants me, but
That's
after
awesome.
I was so fucking sad. Like all those stupid 80 PG movies that we
Yeah,
watched, that
yeah,
Yeah.
were
yeah.
the chubby guy gets the girl, all
Yeah.
that stupid shit.
Remember that
Um,
movie, My Tutor?
oh my God,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, that's right. I'm
Oh,
picturing that. Yeah, all those.
just one of the guys.
Yes,
All of I loved all those
yes,
movies.
yes. So why wouldn't you think that? She thinks she's saying I'm smart. She wants me.
Totally. Like, oh my God. And that's what I'm supposed to like. But she literally was like, no, and like made me do this math and taught me like, and then by the end of it, I'd cotton up and take these tests where I got through all the college level math because of her.
Wow,
So when
that's
I
amazing.
I was like, oh, it's too fucking cold here. Like this sucks.
Yeah.
Where in upstate New York were you?
Watertown, New York,
Watertown.
Where's that?
north
What?
of Syracuse.
Oh, so
Okay.
that's
Like we were closer to
also
fucking
being
Quebec
Canada.
than anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
worked at a Sears there in their shipping department, and we would get French Canadians in all the time because the exchange rate was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I made the news because some guy tried to steal some shit, and I chased him down in the snow and tackled him and held him for the police. And they
So
came, and there was a microwave that he stole. They brought the microwave back and had me take pictures of it and put me in the newspaper and shit.
That's big
that's
news in
awesome.
It was
upstate New
Yeah.
huge back
York.
then. And
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
local library had me come in and they honored me and all this
No
Oh
stupid
my
way.
shit.
gosh, that's amazing.
It
All
was
of that,
funny.
all of that sticking up for yourself with fighting came through in that moment.
Well, that on the real, it took a while. Like the violence, I always knew I could handle myself, and
Right,
fighting I was never averse to it. It was just like an instinct. But I think moreover, it was the injustice part that I hated.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right,
And see, even to this day, I do it differently, but I'll still fight. No way, I don't. Don't bully people around me. That's not happening.
right,
It's
right.
funny you say that. Quick tangent. About a year ago, I went to our local Home Depot and I saw this guy running out of the store with like full of DeWalt hand tools. And he's running to the thing. So I'm with you. I don't like the injustice of it. I got my phone out. I filmed him. I filmed him go into the truck, throwing it all in, got their license plate, gave
But
it to the Home Depot guy.
but he didn't chase him down.
No,
Well, we're
like,
too old now. I wouldn't chase people either.
no.
We're also in Florida, so
Yeah.
you have to
Oh
assume everyone
shit.
has a gun. Okay, so
You
you have to
you
be
got to
careful.
assume that.
You
You
have to
but
assume that. Okay,
like 2
so
years ago on another side. Sorry,
no, no, go
Ryan.
ahead.
2 years ago, I'm driving home after work and I'm dead ass tired, and my wife hits me and says, "Hey, can you get milk on the way home?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get it. It's right there." I stop at the grocery store, and there was a pickup truck when I entered into the parking lot, kind of sort of parked, and there was a door open, and I stopped, and I'm like, "What the fuck are they doing?" And after like 2 minutes, I'm like, "Okay, well, like, they're doing something." So I literally slowly went around, and then I went and parked. When I parked, I noticed in my rearview mirror when I was getting out that there was a truck, but I thought it was like stopped because of traffic. I get out, and the dude rolls his window down and goes, "Hey, fuck you." And I go, "What? Fuck you, you fucking piece of shit." And I look at him and I look around and I go, "Are you talking to me, man?" And he goes, "Yeah, fuck you." And I go, "Dude, I don't know what your deal is, but take your bad day somewhere else. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not having it." I walk down and I go to cross the lane to get to the store, and the dude puts his truck in reverse and it's like fucking spins the wheels and rips back, and I like just moved out of the way like a fucking bullfighter. He goes, And I stop and I'm like, what the actual fuck is up with this dude? And he stops, keeps the truck on, rips the door open, and starts to make his way towards me. And I pause and I assess, okay, has he got a weapon? Is he a threat? And I'm like, no, he's a stupid ass old guy. So I go, okay, I stand my ground and he come John at my face. And I'm like, he ain't doing shit. He's just angry. So I heard him and he's like, yeah. And then he goes, you're a fucking pussy. And I said, wait, hold on, dude. I'm confused. Am I a dick or am I a pussy? Because I can't be both. And I'm assuming you're not cool with trans. So what is it? And he's like, fuck you. Come on. Hit me, motherfucker. And I'm like, what? I said, hold on. You're the one with the problem. So either you shut the fuck up or do something.
Yeah.
And I stood there and he's like, rah, 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 rah. And I said, look, you're all talk, dude. So shut the fuck up or do something. Ah, fuck you. Throw the first punch. And I'm like, so you're just going to talk, huh? You're just going to fucking talk. Run your mouth. All right, good. I'm gone. And then he follows me and follows me. And I turn around and I said, I'm drawing a line. There's an imaginary line in that. I'm going to walk away. You cross that line, I will fuck you up. I promise you. You cross that, you're going to fucking get dropped. And I stood there and looked him in the eye and told him that. And I said, I'm going to walk away now. You cross that line, you're going to get fucked up. That's a promise. And I turned around and then I took a step and I looked back and I go, just remember, you fucking take a step, you're getting fucked up. And I went into the grocery store.
What was his problem with you? Like what
He
triggered it?
said I almost hit his wife. And
But
I'm like,
that's it.
what?
So just
He was just having a bad day
Yeah,
and being a
yeah.
dumbass. Well, apparently, Topeka's small,
Mm.
150K. Some people were filming it and put it on the Topeka Facebook group.
Oh, geez.
And my brother calls me, he's like, dude, you're famous. And I'm like, what? And I don't have Facebook. And he tells me, I'm like, oh, great. And some of my patients saw it. And I'm like, oh, God.
But you weren't in the wrong.
I was not, but I was embarrassed for how I reacted.
But it sounds like you were actually calm compared to what someone else might have reacted to this guy.
Absolutely I was much calmer than him, but it's
Right.
not what I wasn't proud of how I behaved. I should have just walked away. But I knew once I assessed this guy, I knew I would fuck him up. that savage part of me was like, oh, I
Right.
hope he fucks around. I would deck this motherfucker.
Right.
I would
But
spin it to your patients that this is an example of how you stand up for yourself. And it
I
worked out,
could.
you know.
I mean, luckily, only one patient said something to me in a session, and I said, "Look, we're not talking about me. I know now. I look back, and I absolutely could have done so much more different." And they're like, "No, you should have hit that motherfucker."
I
And
mean,
I'm
it
like, "Well,
sounds like he was following you. He wasn't giving you an option to just walk away.
yeah." But honestly, my passive is like I have to. It's a choice. It's active for
Yes,
me.
yes, yes.
And that's the part where I'm a shitty Buddhist, by the way. I can go, oh my God, like I should have walked away because I owned him. I could have fucked him up whenever, but
Yeah.
I knew that. And I acted out of power and taunted him a little bit.
So
And then
yeah.
I'm
You're
like,
not
I
perfect.
shouldn't have.
You're not
You're not
perfect.
perfect, though,
Have you
yeah.
ever heard that saying of then just eat the bacon? It's I want to be a vegan, but I like bacon so much. And it's like be a vegan, but then sometimes eat the bacon. And it's just
I
balance.
am that kind of vegan.
Yeah. It's like
Fuck it. I
you
Yeah.
take meatcations all the time.
yeah, you do the best you can most of the time, and then sometimes you just eat the
Sometimes
bacon.
people
You
just
know,
cross the line and trigger you. I can relate to what you're
you
saying.
might have calmed
Yeah.
him and
Yeah.
checked him before he did something worse to
I
someone
will
else.
tell you, I thought of that too at one time.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? He's lucky he came at me
Yeah,
because Topeka is a lot like Florida. There are motherfuckers armed everywhere.
yeah,
He
Yeah.
is so lucky he didn't come at an armed, like one of these armed young guys.
right,
Yeah.
They would have fucking shot his ass in the fucking center.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. Okay, so
Sorry.
we're
Sorry.
back to Upstate. You're like, gosh, you're in with Michael Landon. You're getting your picture taken at Sears, and now you're on the Topeka Facebook page. Little
I know.
fame follows
Are
you.
you into Skinner at all? B.F. Skinner?
No, I mean,
Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard of Skinner and I've read some Skinner, but I'm
Yeah.
not like a fan. Like that's not somebody I've gotten into.
Yeah.
What about Jung?
Damn. Yes, I am a phenomenologist.
Wait, I've never heard that.
Phenomenologist?
What's that?
Carl Jung's phenomenology. That which exists exists because of your experience.
Yeah, yeah, I know that. I didn't know there was a name for
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
that's the phenomenology.
Oh, okay, okay. We love
Yes,
Carl Jung. I didn't know there was a name. Did you know
I
that?
No, I didn't.
No.
I got into Jung through theology and stayed for the
Okay.
philosophy, but absolute Jung, all him and Freud, all their stuff is found. Most of it's bullshit. They had their own issues, but
Yes.
I
Oh,
love
yeah.
the
Yes.
phenomenology part. Like I love that. That which exists because of experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
It runs completely in line with quantum mechanics.
Oh, that's interesting.
The
You know,
the reason I ask about Skinner is his whole intermittent conditioning, right? And it's very powerful in terms of learning and conditioning. And you've got kind of that pattern, it sounds like, in your life where a little bit of love, a little bit more love, and a little more love. You know what it is, so you learned it, and it's very powerful. And it's interesting
well,
to hear. Just that just comes to mind for me.
and that I think in the human condition, we are not intended to be alone or isolated, nor unloved. Like we will seek that, in the most abusive of situations. I was listening to one of your episodes, and the guest was talking about that their parents, uh, one of the parents was abusive, physically abusive, and would beat the shit out of them, and that they learned that that's what loving relationships were. That how
Mm.
did they know they were loved? Well, my partner's kicking my ass.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Similarly, thinking, yeah, we get conditioned for that, and it may not be love, but because we perceive it as love, we seek it. So we will find ourselves going back into unhealthy
yeah.
relationships, and I was victim of that consistently. Any romantic relationship I went into for the longest time was unhealthy and abusive,
Mm-hmm. But
and it wasn't physically abusive, but it mimicked what I knew as love.
Probably extremely powerful too, intoxicating and
it's the
very.
Oh, to be chosen and to be loved, like, oh my God.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Fuck
you
yeah.
knew a little bit of taste of it, and you've had it off and on. It's extremely powerful.
but even if it's something as toxic and dysfunctional, if it's a known trauma, that's more comfortable than going for
It applies to
the
every
un the
aspect of your
yeah,
life. Yeah,
the healthy route is scary. It's an
Mhm.
unknown. So let's stick with the security blanket of trauma. You know that. You know how
Well, and I
that's
tell
gonna go.
patients that all the
Yeah.
time. Look, if I knew now back then, like, oh, Ryan, 25-year-old Ryan, hey, you're gonna have healthier, but it's gonna cost you everything. I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Because that everything was everything, but now in hindsight, 25 years later, I look back and go, "Fuck yeah, I'm grateful it cost
yeah,
everything because it was all the unhealthy shit."
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you had to shed it in order to
Yeah,
actually live.
You know what you
Well,
and
know, though.
so leaving, upstate New York, where did you go after that?
I went back home to LA.
Okay, and then did you go back to college and
I did, I failed out, though. I went only because I had to. I did that for about a year. I instantly went back to drinking. Like, literally got off the airplane. My brother and I went, and we had a homecoming party with some friends,
Mhm.
and I instantly went back to the drinking.
When
So
did you
when did you
start?
start? Yeah.
Oh
We skipped
God.
that.
Um, what freshman year? So however old I was,
Oh,
Like
high
4
13.
school.
14 high school. So
Yeah.
was it normal high school partying, or were you also using it as a coping mechanism?
Oh, it was absolutely a coping skill. I went so fucking hard into the drinking. I was a big guy, and I played football. And football, you were supposed to be the big man, and there was all these parties and social
Mhm.
scenes. So I would go hard, but I also didn't accept it or know back then, but I have social anxiety.
Mm.
I don't like being around people.
Mm.
I don't like people. Like I say that not as a curt thing, but I prefer much more introverted manners.
Brian's like that.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
drank to be social. like to
Mhm.
get courage. Like, so I drank. Oh, I got to talk to women. So I drank. Oh, I'm afraid of rejection. So I drank.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around people. They're going to judge me. So I drank. And then when I drank, that persona built, I call him Troy,
Mm.
is my alter ego. He took over and he was the life of the party, crushing beer cans on his head, doing all the crazy shit, getting into fights. He took over and he was me for the longest time. And I acquiesced to him, and Ryan shrank and kind of hid.
Mhm.
Did
And
you
the
call
drinking
him
was
did you call him Troy in the present back then? Or
yeah.
was it as you got older, you're like, that was my Troy?
No, he was named. My brother, I would get all crazy and do all these like sort of Neanderthal fucking things. Like, I could spend there's so many fucking stories of the crazy shit I would do. And which is funny because there was still a justice component. Like, I was a protector. I wrote up this idea that I was unloved and unwanted in high school, that I was a fucking savage piece of shit, which I held for the longest time. And when my dad died, as parents do, my mom sent me all the shit that they saved that I never wanted.
Yes.
Like, Ryan, here's your 3 boxes of all the shit that I
Yes.
saved. And I'm like, why did you save it? I didn't want it. Well, I was saving it for you. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay. But it had all these yearbooks in it. And
Mm.
my wife said, "Can I go through it?" Because I'm like, I can. I'm it's too close. I'm still grieving. She said, "Can I go through it and at least like catalog this stuff?" And I'm like, yes. And so she spent an afternoon looking at these boxes and was enamored with these yearbooks. One, she was like, "Oh my God, look at you! You're so little." Um, and she was reading all the comments from people, and she came to me and said, "Honey, you've always said you were a horrible human and just so violent and just an asshole. Um, but can I read you something?" And I was like, okay. And so she started reading me these entries from people that were like kind and loving, like just totally contrary to the idea that I'd written for myself.
Mhm.
And she's reading them out loud, and it kind of like overcame me. And in my grief, I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? And I was like, that's not copacetic with what I understood of myself. So I reached out to an old friend through Facebook, and I said, "Hey, can I ask you a stupid question?" And she's like, "Well, what?" And I said, "What do you remember of me in high school?" And she said, "Oh my God, Ryan, you were the nicest guy." She said, "We always felt so safe around you. You were just
Mm.
like our protector, like our big brother." And I went, "Oh, fuck, that's it. That's why you guys, because I always said, oh, women didn't like me." She said, "No, we loved you. You were like our big brother." She said, "In fact, so and so she got divorced." And she was like, "I wonder what Ryan's up to."
Mhm.
She was like, "No, we loved you so much. You were just so kind." And then I went and looked, and I go, "Oh, wait, that was me." And it helped me. In my own therapy, talking to my therapist and processing this, and her helping me understand that I'd written this narrative of myself of survival and that I was savage. Well, yeah, that there was there, but that was the trauma response.
That's the what's going on inside of you.
Yes.
But what you were projecting was probably the protector and the kindness that you so desperately wanted. You became the
Yeah.
person for others that you had hoped would be for you.
Absolutely. And that's in my work as a therapist, that's what I try to help people do and say, your job is to be the healthy adult that your little kid needed.
Yes.
And yeah, that's literally what I did. And the sort of meandering road I've been on, I use that as a prescriptive for patients to say, look, you are not a piece of shit. You're an amazing human. I don't give a fuck who you are. You start there. You start at an amazing human and then you build from that. But we have to learn how to do that most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, that does not co at least I can say for our generation, does not come naturally. We were not raised to think highly of ourselves at all. You know,
So
if we
that
could.
was pompous, right?
Yeah.
Get your fucking pride out of here, you
Yeah.
uppity motherfucker. What?
Yeah.
Because I think I'm not a piece of shit?
Yes. Like, even with our peers, I mean, speaking as a girl, we would see who could put each other down ourselves down the most. Like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, I'm fat," or "I'm not this, I'm not that." And then the other would be like, "No, no, I'm not this and I'm not that." God, you never would say anything good about yourself. You'd be like, "Oh my god, no, I have this the worse than you. Like, you're great, but I'm horrible." It was almost like
Nah.
this just self-deprecating, but seriously, not in a funny way, competition of how much can we put
Yeah.
ourselves down. And I think that at least for the women in our generation, then we grew up the girls grew up and became the women that struggle so much with so much shit, especially body image and all that. That's a whole nother episode we're gonna do. But
For
because
real.
yeah, but then we raised these Gen Z daughters and they're amazing.
Our kids
You
are
know,
so much better than us. Oh my
yes.
God.
We're
You
like
know, my
they
kids are
believe in
young,
themselves. Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
went to an elementary school talent show. I forget what grade it was. So let's say they were like third or fourth grade, my kids. I go and I'm sitting in there and I'm watching, like, there was these like 4 or 5 older kids, fifth or sixth graders, and this one kid, like imagine Chris Farley as a little boy.
Yeah.
And I literally watched him on stage discover that laughter, that he can make people laugh. And I was like, "Oh, kid, you just done fucked yourself up
Yeah.
because now you're gonna chase that high the rest of your life." Because he was
Oh,
genuinely fucking funny.
Yeah.
But right after them, this special abilities young girl came on, and the wounded part of me instantly went up, and I'm looking around. All right, any motherfucker goes off on this girl, I'm gonna fucking rip him a new asshole. And I could feel like myself like clinching up, and I'm like searching, and my wife could feel it too. And our daughter was with us in the audience, and she was sitting on my lap, and I was holding her, and I guess I held her too tight. And she goes, "Daddy, you're hurting me." And I was like, "Oh, fuck, I'm sorry." And my wife goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm triggered." She's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I'm waiting for people to fucking go off on this little girl." And
Yeah.
she's like, and she's holding my arm. She's like, "You're okay." And I go, "I know I'm safe, but I'm
Yeah.
triggered." And she goes, "You're okay." And I'm watching this little girl do Jay-Z's It's a Hard Knocks Life.
Mm.
She's like
Mhm.
doing some dance routine, and I'm like, this is kind of cringy. And she is so into it and very
Yeah.
earnest. And she ends, and everybody goes ape shit. The
Oh,
kids, the teachers, they're just like lauding her with, and all the popular girls who were performing were on stage. They run over and they're holding her.
yeah.
And I thought, okay, we're going to be okay. These kids are better than us.
yeah,
Yes,
times have
they
changed.
are. Like, they really and the girlhood, I can speak as having a 25-year-old daughter, so I'm sure it's even gonna be stronger with your kids, but the girlhood is strong. Like, they celebrate each other, they lift each other up. Like, it's a now I will say Gen X in general, we have kicked ass parenting. Like, the ones who've wanted to change the whole narrative here and be part of the cultural shift. We've done an amazing job. I think so. You know, our kids are phenomenal. And yeah, sometimes it's a little too much for society. I get that, but I don't care. We broke this cycle and look at what we've created. They're amazing.
My dad used to tell me, this was after his heart attack. So we, in our nation, there's like a name giver, like you get your name when you're like a sort of right to manhood,
Hmm.
which I never got the ceremony because that died. So I always felt like, oh, I'm not a real man. I'm not a grown up, which on the real, I still don't feel like I'm a fucking grown up.
I don't think any
But
of
I'm
us
with you.
do.
I'm waiting
Yeah.
to grow up,
We're all
but
figuring
for
it out.
real,
Yeah.
I
fuck
my
that.
idea of retirement is when I get retired, if I ever fucking do,
Right.
I want to go to a retirement friend village and fucking hang out and
Yeah.
talk about, like, watch our movies, like fucking just like live a life in community and just hang out. That's what I
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah. A Gen X retirement community will kick ass.
Oh my God, I would so go there.
The music
Oh, we
My house.
have
alone.
it. What's that place? The Village
That's
is.
not Gen X.
They're having threesomes and
That's
swinger parties
boomers.
Oh,
and
Those
see,
shit.
I
are
don't want
boomers.
that.
I
I don't
don't want
want.
that either.
That's my number one rule. I want community, but you don't try to fuck my wife or me.
Yeah.
I'm good. You you do what you want. But
Yeah.
that's not my jam. I'm not out there trying to
That's the
fucking
Villages.
yell
That's
twisted.
that's the boomers or like the older Gen X that are more boomer. I'm talking about a John Hughes marathon night and we all just
I'm
hang
in.
out. You know what I mean? Like
Ugh.
that and the music. All of our bands that
The
the ones
best
yeah,
music.
the best music, even if it's cover of our music, like and just dancing, like that's it. Okay, so all right. So you did you drink in upstate New York? Because you said you went back to
No,
drinking.
I was sober.
So you graduate from high school, you go to upstate New York, you stop drinking.
Yeah, got sober, got a 4.0 GPA,
Okay. And
and
then
then I sit it. No joke. My plane landed that night. I was drinking.
so what triggered you leaving? It was just too cold in upstate New
No,
York?
my brother left because he was in continuation high school, and I'm the only one of my brothers that graduated high school in 4 years.
Okay.
Everyone else, hell, I got two of my family members. They don't have GEDs or high school diplomas,
Okay.
and I have an uncle who was functionally illiterate.
So your brother was in continuation high school in upstate New York and then he graduated?
Well, when he went to New York, he went to regular high school and graduated.
Okay.
So he got sober too and got out of that element and got healthier. But as soon as we got back, like I mean, hell, on the airplane, we were clamoring to fucking go get lit.
It's almost like upstate New York was that boundary for you and as soon as you guys left it, you went right back.
But in hindsight, looking now, at these things is similar. We had to get out of that environment in order to see what the fuck it was. There was no healing available to us there. None. It couldn't.
It
You can't heal in the danger.
no, no.
And
So
so when we got out and went to New York, it was safer,
Okay.
but it was just enough of a different for us to do different. And we both did. We flourished in the different, but we couldn't handle it. We didn't want it or know how to be in it.
okay.
Um, like when I left in 2005, 4, I left LA in 2004 and went to Kenya, and I've never been back. I never lived there. I've visited, but I never went back. And that was the greatest thing I could have ever done because that's literally what helped me heal.
Okay. So you get back to LA, you guys start partying again. You try college, you fail out. What do you do next?
I got a full-time job because my parents kicked me out.
Okay.
They
And
were
what
like,
did
if you're not going to school, because I lied to them one semester, like I enrolled, and got the little card and gave it to them to prove, and then they caught me like fucking around. Like we would we would pretend to go to school, my brother and I, and we wouldn't, and we were very deceptive. So they were like, you need to work full time, or so I was like, well, I'll work. So we started working at a large insurance company
Mhm.
back when HMOs first started,
Mhm.
and then we that parlayed into being customer service reps, and then that moved into like selling and underwriting insurance. And the back in the Viagra days when it was fucking bananas, but we made so much fucking money. In fact, up until recently, that's the most money I've ever made in my lifetime. Was when I was like in my early 20s.
Were you guys living together?
Yeah, and I have nothing to show from it because we pissed it away. Like we would go to Vegas and fucking, $500 on a hand of fucking poker or whatever. I didn't know how to play poker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie Swingers came out and we did
Mhm.
that. Like we lived that. I used to go to the Derby and go dancing, and I'm a big guy and I can actually dance. Man, I would dance with so many women would like line up to dance with me because I could do all the fucking crazy moves from the movies, like
Yeah.
fucking spins. And there was this one woman that used to wait. She was really little, and I loved dancing with her because she could fly. And we would go on the dance floor, and I could fucking throw her in the air and shit, and do all these crazy moves. And we just could dance. but I never made a move or a pass on her. 'Cause I was like, "No, I'm here to dance. I don't wanna fuck this up." But I was
Right.
also afraid. I didn't wanna care for anybody and have them reject me.
Had you had a relationship yet with a woman, a long-term relationship?
Um, at that point, no. I stayed away because I was afraid of burning in hell. So I stayed away, and then, almost right after that, though, I did start dating my first real girlfriend, but I was almost 21.
Okay, so you still were and had the religious mentality of
Like,
sex
it was
before
fear,
marriage
though, I
and
would
all
say
that.
that. It was
Yeah,
yeah, that, "No, you shouldn't have sex before marriage," the whole purity culture.
right.
I am absolutely a product of the, byproduct of how that damages men.
Mhm. Right.
The unrealistic expectations of what physical intimacy is, that, "Oh, everything is gonna be better once I get married, fuck yeah," but not having any kind of sexual education,
Yeah.
like, no physical, I didn't know shit about body,
Yeah.
like, Cindy Bischoff, if you're out there, I still remember sitting next to you in 6th grade, I think it was. Yeah, 6th grade. Our elbows touched, and I felt really weird. And I'm like, wow, like, I feel weird. And I just found myself trying to make any excuse to be near her.
Right.
And I wrote her a love letter for the night before the last day of school. And I poured my 6th grader heart out onto paper. Then I got scared and put it underneath my pillow and didn't bring it to school to give to her, but my brothers found it and read
No,
it at dinner that night.
Oh, no.
no,
Yeah, and I
no.
was like, "Nope, never again. I will never ever be romantic. I will never anything because they torched me mercilessly,
Yeah, and
and I was like, "Done." So
That was
I
definitely our generation.
well, and also though with the whole purity thing and not giving any education to either side, men, boys or girls, probably, I would
for
assume.
real.
Um, then you have people that don't know what they're doing too. So you're going out into the world now. You know nothing about your body, but you also know nothing about a woman's body. And now
No, less than nothing, right?
less
Like,
than nothing. I mean, even take guys who went through sex education, trust me,
Well,
they don't know either.
VHS porn.
Yeah, but
right, the porn,
porn
the
is
You know
unrealistic
bullshit.
VHS, yeah.
expectation.
But that's bullshit, right? Because that's
Oh,
acting. And then you guys are
But you
taught
don't know that.
you're taught the wrong
right.
things that women
But you
like,
don't know that.
I know. And
Hey,
so you're sent out and then we have to deal with you know what I mean? But
Right.
I think it's 10 times worse if you're coming from a purity situation
I mean,
because
your dichotomy is
it's
off the charts in
y-
that
you were
sense.
given
Yeah.
zero
Oh, it
knowledge.
was so horrid, and I will never forget, like, entering into the dating pool, and it wasn't like that. Like, women liked me. I can look back and go, yeah, they were very interested in dating me, but I was afraid
Right.
of burning in hell, but I was like, no, because I didn't want to get hurt.
Right.
So, and there was at one point, like, I used to lift weights like crazy, and I used to have like six pack. I was really like physically put together,
Mhm.
and I was just like, "No, I'm not. I don't wanna no, no, I'm good." But this one woman, we knew each other in high school, kind of a parallel. I was at a punk show, and, I went outside to cool down because it was fucking hot as shit in this dirty club, and I used to smoke cigarettes. So I go outside and I'm smoking. I didn't have a shirt on because it
Mm,
got ripped off in the pit. So
yeah.
I go outside and I'm in fucking, like, my Dickie pants and Vans with no shirt, fucking smoking cigarettes. My head was shaved. And, this girl's like, "Hey, can I bum a smoke?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we just start talking. And she was totally flirting with me. And my buddy, Dan, was looking at me like, "You're the dumbest motherfucker." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You're not going to go get her number?" And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Dude, you're a fucking idiot. Go get her number. I'm going to fucking punch you." And that's why I went and got her number because I didn't want to get punched by my buddy Dan because he was way bigger than me. So I got her number and called her and we just talked and hung out. Well, her family were very religious
Mm,
and I wasn't in the church at all at that time. I left. But because of her, I started going to church again.
okay.
And that's how I got as an adult into the evangelical movement.
Okay. So did you guys start dating?
Yeah, we started dating. I
Okay.
tell people I'd never dated. I took hostages.
Okay. Although it sounds like she pulled you back in.
She did, but honest to God, it was almost instantly. Like we went on a couple of dates, and I'm like, okay, well, we're going to get married.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what you thought, right? That
Well,
you're
that's what was supposed to happen, right?
right. That's what you're supposed
So
to do.
like,
Yeah.
uh, you use the God language then. So then the axiom was, well, God ordained us.
Okay.
So I met her at this punk show, and we started dating, hanging out.
Yeah.
And we were literally drinking buddies. Like we would go party, and I was like, "Oh, she's like a good Christian girl," and then she's like, "No, she's a party girl." And we were both pretty much alcoholics at the time. Uh, we dated for fuck. It was at least 2 years, maybe close to three. But my grandmother got sick, and she was dying, and she died. Uh, but at her funeral, we go, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And it was like talking about future forward. Oh yeah, I can't wait till we get married and this and that. So I'm like, oh, we're getting fucking married. And we get home, and we're smoking a cigarette on the front porch, and she says, "Hey, promise me something." And I was like, "What?" She says, "Promise me that we'll always be friends no matter what." And my stomach went sideways, and I'm like, "What the fuck do you mean? Well, we're gonna be married." And she's like, "Just promise me that." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." But I'm like, "Ooh, something's going on." But
Yeah.
I didn't want to accept it. And so I threw myself a birthday party, and at that birthday party, I got really fucked up and passed out. My brothers um wake me up and say, "Hey, you need to come see this. Like we caught her making out with some dude." And I was like,
Um,
"No, no, fuck you guys, you're full of shit." Well, um fast forward maybe a week later, um we're hanging out, Princess Diana died, and we were watching the news coverage of that, and
1997.
she turns to me and says, was it 97 or an 88?
Thought it was 97. Was it I don't know. So it's one
No
of them,
clue.
97
Yeah,
or
one of those.
yeah.
She says, "Hey, can we talk?" And I'm like, "What?" She said, "I've been praying about this forever, and God's telling me that we shouldn't be together."
Now, had you gone back to the church by now with her and had
Yes,
been
I was like,
involved?
I was so into the church.
So you were
Like
living this life where you're still partying, but you're also still
oh, so was she. We were
you
both
both
partying together.
and in
But,
the church.
I really wanted so hard to be good in the church, and I wanted to I was trying to live this, and one of the things was, like, the fruit of the spirits where you need to be able to speak in tongues and whatnot, and that's not the tradition I came out of, but I was like, "Well, fuck it, if that's one of the signs." So one of the youth leaders was trying to teach me how to speak in tongues, and I kept thinking, "The fuck, I'm not getting it, I'm not doing it right," but I wanted to please him so hard, I faked it.
So you can learn how to actually do that?
That's what they told me.
What's that even mean?
It's kind of like where the spirit is inside of you and you just
Mhm.
start like
You start
God is
speaking the
inside of
spiritual
you.
tongue.
The spiritual
The
tongue.
tradition, you speak, whoever speaks in tongues, they speak, and then there has to be someone there that interprets.
So you made it up. So
I
how did they
did.
interpret you?
They were like,
They made it up too?
Oh, fucking
apparently they did, because I was full of shit. I'm speaking in tongues, and they're like, "Yes, praise Jesus, praise the Lord," and I'm just like, "Yeah." So I was faking it.
Right.
Um, yeah, but she told me, "Yeah, the Lord's telling me we shouldn't be together," and I was thinking, "Well, I'm not hearing anything. Maybe I'm fucked up."
Oh, wow.
And so we broke up, and it was devastating to me, like suicidal ideations and
Mm.
unworthiness, and it was the worst time. And I thought, I don't want to drink because that's bad. I'm gonna go fucking too hard, and I'm gonna die. So I quit drinking,
Okay.
and I got sober like overnight. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking earn her back. I'm gonna get her back. So I quit drinking and like fucking threw myself into all kinds of crazy shit. Working out, I worked out like 8 hours a day. Then I went back to school and was like, I'm going to take school. I'm going to go to school. And I just was searching for anything. And then I was like, no, and none of it's working. So after a few years, I was like, I need to move on. And
And
then the sobriety, I partied a little bit, but then I was like, I, one night I went out, got fucked up, and I tried to get into a fight and get killed.
Okay.
because I couldn't kill myself because that suicide's bad. But
Yes.
if I could die, I'd be good with that.
And
So I went to this like fucking shake your ass party club kind of bar, like the '90s excess bar with sports
yes.
bars.
Yes.
And there was this big ass dude on the dance floor and dancing with this woman. I'm like, that's the guy. So I went over to him and I grabbed the woman's butt
Oh my gosh.
in front of the guy. And she was like, what the fuck? And I said, whatever. And I said, to the guy, fuck you.
Oh my
And he
god.
goes, what, dude, are you okay? And they both were like, are you all right, man? Like, seriously, are you okay? And instead of fighting me, they showed compassion.
Mm.
And it was so convicting. Like this flood over me was embarrassed. And I was like, so I look around and there was a long neck Budweiser on a table and I grabbed it and it still had some beer in it. And I turned it over and smashed the bottle. And now I got fucking glass and beer all over my arm. And I hand the bottle to the guy and I'm like, all right, fucker, now it's fair.
So you were still determined.
I wanted him to kill me.
And what'd he do?
He put it down. He said, dude, are you okay?
Okay.
And she reached over and was like, kind of like holding my arm, like, are you all right, man?
Yeah.
And I got embarrassed and I ran. And the way I ran into like a patio and there was no other where to go. So I went through the emergency exit.
And then did you
Oh, the fucking
drink
alarms
again at
go off?
The fucking
Oh,
alarm went
it
off
did? No.
and everybody was looking at me and I was even more embarrassed. And I ran and it was like in a business park and I'm looking for like where the fuck can I go? I didn't know where I was at. And there was a fountain like in the middle of this business park. So I ran and jumped in the fountain and tried to hide underneath the water.
Oh my gosh. This sounds like a fever dream.
I just was ugly crying. And I hated myself so hard. I'm like, you can't keep doing this. I fucking wanted to die. And I was in that there. I'm like, dude, you got to quit drinking. You
Yeah.
got to quit drinking. And it took, I don't know, a good 12 to 18 months to actually stop. But my drinking like caved and I'm like, I got to do something different. So I was like, what do I do? I didn't have any other healthy examples or anything around me. And I didn't know what the fuck therapy was. So I tried AA and I just didn't jive with me. So I slowly tapered and I went back to college. I took a college course because the relationship I was in ended. It was not a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So I ended that and then went to college and that professor was like, you're smart. And I'm like, fuck you. You're a pedophile. You're trying to fuck me.
It's just like you thought the other
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally. And he was like, his name was Craig, but he let me smoke cigarettes in his office while he smoked the pipe.
Oh geez.
And so we hung out and he was like, you're really smart. And I got an A in his class and he said, dude, you're taking my next class next semester. And I was like, okay. And it was then they had some instant admissions thing on the college, junior college. He said, hey, bring all your shit. And I'm like, what shit? And he's like, never mind. He went to the administration or the registrar, got my high school transcripts and the college stuff that I had from getting into the junior college. He printed it out and brought it with him to this thing, and I was supposed to meet him, and he sat outside and smoked his pipe while I went in to get interviewed. And when I came out, they had told me I got accepted to university,
Wow.
and my
That's
brother
amazing.
didn't. He didn't get in,
Mm.
That's
and
amazing.
and I was like, no, fuck that. If we can't do it together, I'm not going to do it. And he goes, no, fuck you. You're going. You're going to go. I'll get in for next time. And then I was like, okay, I'm only going to do it because you're going to go next semester. But he never did.
He didn't.
Mm-mm. He went crazy and did his own thing, and I did, and that's what saved me.
What school was this?
Cal State University, Northridge.
And so Craig was a monumental person in your life.
He
Pivotal.
was he I could not tell you. He was at the junior college, and after I got in, I'm like, okay, so what the fuck do I do, man? And he's like, all right. He literally like hand walked me over to this building and said, okay, this is the financial aid person. She's going to help you. And then she called over to the university and got me connected with the financial person there. And then they're like, okay, you need to get registered for classes. What the fuck do I do? And so they connected me. I originally was a biology major, and I started off there. But the next semester, I had to get classes or advisement, and I couldn't
W-
get a hold of them. So my friend jokingly, someone I met there jokingly gave me a pamphlet for the religious studies program. So I had it, and I called the number out of frustration, and ended up talking to the chair of the department. He answered the phone, and we ended up talking for like 2 hours, and he had me convinced at the end of it, and had me registered for religious studies courses, and I changed my major.
Hmm.
And so what did your if it was it theology then what your major was?
Well, the religious studies, that it wasn't theology because they're a comparative religious studies. It's a public university,
Oh, okay.
and they were the first public university with a religious studies program, a comparative study in the West. So I went there, and I was like, oh, I'll just do this because I can get classes. Well, I ended up becoming a TA with the department, and that's where ended up studying early Buddhism, like Buddhism before it came out, and itself, it was still part of Hinduism. So I started studying that and just got totally into that. And that was what my plan was. Oh, I'm going to get my doctoral degree and be a professor in early Buddhism. And the professor that was one of my mentors was like, you should go to seminary because you can get this degree and like a bonus degree, just in case the professor doesn't work out, you'll be able to have a career. You'll have a MDiv. And I was like, okay. But in the meantime, I got involved in a relationship that was not healthy, and it was super toxic. But I was hurting. And so I was like, I need to run away from this. So I dropped out of school and ended up missing the keystone that I needed to graduate. So I had to go for another year. That other year, I was like, well, fuck, I need to fill out my uh, schedule. So I started taking art classes and fell in love with ceramic arts.
Okay.
And I'm an artist by nature, creator, and so I got into that and ended up getting huge into ceramic arts. And the professor was like, "Dude, you're really good. Uh, you need to do your MFA." And I was like, "Okay." So I started that, and then I'm like, "No, I need to run away." And so I applied to be a missionary, and they accepted me. And I was like, "Oh, well, I'll go because Kenya has this ceramic technique that is from antiquity that they used in Paleolithic times that's still practiced. I'm going to study that, and that's going to be my MFA." And then I went, and when I was getting trained to go be a missionary, it was at a seminary in Chicago, and this Presbyterian school. This lady was really cool. She was like the recruiter. She convinced me to just apply and interviewed me there, and I applied, and she waived the the fees. So I went away going, I'm never coming back. Well, I got accepted and got a letter while I was in Kenya. And when I was in Kenya, shit got dangerous and I had to leave.
So you dropped out of college and went and applied to be in seminary school in Chicago. Am I
No,
following you that
I
right?
graduated college because so when
Okay.
I applied for this missionary program, they're like, you need to have a college degree. So I went back to my guy and said, all right, what's the fastest way to get a college degree? And he's like, dude, you need this one class for a religious studies degree. And I'm like, well, fuck it, then that's what I'm doing. So that's why I have a religious studies degree.
Okay. So then you graduated.
Hmm.
You got your undergrad. How long had it taken you to get your undergraduate?
11 years.
That's amazing. It's
11 from
amazing.
high school or 11 from when you got into it?
11 from the s-
Upstate New York.
yeah, I started it in
Okay.
like kind of right at that was the December after I graduated high school.
Yeah, 11 years. So was that a big deal in your family, that moment when you graduated?
Um, yes and no. It wasn't really celebrated.
Was it a moment for you? Did you acknowledge it in any way?
No, I graduated in August. In fact, I didn't walk
You
across the
didn't walk?
stage. Mm-mm. I just did it. It was just another thing I completed. Okay, I did that, and then went on to the next, which was the seminary or the missionary thing, which I when I left, I was like, I'm never coming back. I'm going to live here.
So you graduate and decide you're going to be a missionary, which is affiliated with your church,
Yes, which was affiliated with the church that I was at.
the church that you were at.
But it's a missionary in Kenya with the primary motivation of doing Paleolithic.
Well, that was
Ren-
kind of like the side thing,
Okay.
like sort of like a justification. If it
Yeah.
doesn't work out, I'll do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I never did, in fact, go and study that ceramic technique. I never even went to the village. When I was there, I got caught up in the whole thing. I was like, oh, fuck it. I'm never leaving. I'm going to live here. I stopped taking my anti-malarial meds. It was like, fuck it. I'm going to live here. I might as well get local.
Oh
And within like a month, I was on the coast and got malaria
my
Okay.
God.
and almost died. And I'm like, well, that was stupid. But then I was like,
I'm
fuck
a
it. I already
local
got
now.
malaria. I'm good.
Oh my. So wait. So before you went to Kenya, you had gone to Chicago and applied to be in the seminary. Am I
Yeah.
following you
Well,
right?
when I was I went to Chicago for the month-long training to be the missionary in Kenya.
Okay. And
And while
then,
I was there, I met this lady who was the administration or admissions person for this other seminary. And I was like, and it wasn't even the one I was at because they were hosting it at a seminary.
okay.
And it was in Texas. And I was like, oh, fuck it. I'll talk to you. So we talked and bullshitted for this one evening. And that was the interview. And she had me fill out the paperwork and I did. And that was how I applied.
So how long? And then you go to Kenya. Okay.
Yep.
And then
Then I'm in Kenya
how
and then
long
I
were
get
you
a
in
letter.
Kenya?
I was only there for just under a year
That's a long
because
time.
well, my plan was to live there forever,
Right.
but there was some danger happening and it became unsafe. And I originally had planned, I was there with the Presbyterian church, but I was going to abandon them and go to the Lutherans because they were like, no, fuck yeah. Well, we're going to hire you on for permanent. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Because that was my goal, was to stay there. And the shit happened, and then there was like this violent act, and they're like, "You need to get the fuck out of here, Ryan," because I traveled all over Kenya, all over Eastern Africa. My job was literally to travel and kind of do emergency management and sort of write this newsletter. So I was like a photojournalist. So I
Mm.
got exposed to all kinds of crazy shit, which is where my PTSD went from regular PTSD to complex PTSD because I chose to relapse while I was there because I couldn't sleep because of the traumas I was experiencing. So I chose to drink as like medicine, and I intentionally relapsed and would drink every a couple days so I could pass out.
So you just said what your role was, but explain that more. So you weren't over there trying to spread the word of God. You were over there.
No, it was a service-based trip. Like I was like Peace Corps.
Okay. So you're there to like build fences,
Yeah,
build
like do like
schools.
With
whatever skills
water
I
going.
had to how do I use my skills, and I go there with a religious studies degree with no discernible skills, and I end up finding out I built a computer network was one of the things I did. I taught people how to use computers. So I taught like computing, and then that turned into teaching people how to write papers and to grammar, kind of like an English teacher.
Wow.
Um, so I did a lot of weird shit, but I traveled and took photography and taught people how to like how to take photos, and like I wrote this newsletter that was designed to teach or to connect people, like the people's needs on the ground, to donors in the States. Like I managed that, and I hung out, and then it ended up just me uh, partying a lot and kind of hanging out with people.
But you also saw some horrible things, is what you alluded to.
Yeah, there was lots of death and violence that
Right.
visited me there.
So when you left, were you still drinking?
Yes. And it took me from when I started, I intentionally relapsed um, in March of 25. I intentionally relapsed, made the conscious decision to, and that began a 3-year journey back to sobriety.
Wait, 25 or 2005?
Sorry, 2005.
Okay. And so where did you go when you came back to the States after that time?
I came home for like a week, and then I instantly went to Texas to where I was going to go to seminary.
And did you do the seminary?
I did. I showed up and they didn't know I had accepted because I never accepted. I didn't know you were supposed to accept their admissions.
Yeah.
So I just showed up and they're like, "Oh, fuck, we didn't know you were coming." So I pretended to be a student for a couple days and hid and slept in the lounge.
Well, and what happened? Did they eventually accept you?
Yeah, they came after a couple days. The woman who's now my wife, we met and we were
Ah,
friends.
okay.
And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm fucking fine." But they caught me sneaking into the lounge one night. And I said, "Please don't say anything. Like, I'm trying to fucking do this." And they're like, "No, we're good." And so then they rallied around me and like were like hiding me and stuff. It was fucking awesome.
That's
And
fun.
it honestly, it was another expansion of grace and love. Like, the woman who's now my wife, we met and she was in a relationship and I was like not looking for anything,
Mhm.
but I instantly knew she loved me. Like she really cared about me.
Mhm.
And so did everyone else. They kept rejecting my rejecting. They're like, fuck
Mm.
you. We love you. You're one of us. So they kept watching out for me and like loving on me and just like caring for me. And I'm like, fuck you. And they're like, no, fuck you. We're going to love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first times in my life that I got a breath.
Like, it's unconditional love as much as you fought against
Absolutely.
it.
And I think about it now and I go, man, that's the closest I've ever had to evidence that there really is a God. I'm like, they really did love me.
Yeah.
And it just, something worked out. There was a person that didn't accept some scholarship. So not only did it work out, I got this bitchin' dorm room, like this fucking killer dorm room in the middle of Austin during the waning years of old Austin that I was
Mm.
paying like 127 bucks a month for.
Wow.
Like
Wow.
I lucked out so hard. And the other part, there was a bar that was 420 steps ish from my dorm room that I went there a lot. And they're like, "You want a job?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah." So I got a job working at this bar where I only had to work 2 or 3 nights a week. And I was making way more money than like student job.
But you're still taking classes, right? During this
Yes,
whole
I
time?
was a full-time student and the community surrounded me and connected me to resources. So they taught me how to study. They taught me how to read academically. They
Which
taught me how to write papers. Like they literally were like, "Fuck you. We're going to take you with us." Cuz they knew I didn't know how to do shit.
did they help you with your dyslexia?
Yeah, I mean that would they connected me with this woman who was a writing expert, and she's the one that taught me how to write papers. Like literally, I mean, treated me. I was never explicit like this is for dyslexia, but she's like, dude, this is what you need to do. And apparently, like, either she knew or something, because she's the one that gave me the skills. Like taught me how do you like with the reading, how do I block off the reading so that I can focus
Right.
taught me how do I move through and how to like different sort of coping things to use to read. She did it all. And the woman who's my wife now, she was on the whole ride for me. And she was like, "You're my friend." And my favorite is we were friends, like really good friends. We hung out. Then her relationship ended and we hung out a lot. She'd come to my bar all the time and I'd give her free beer and burgers. And I joked like she was in it for the beer and burgers. And I just thought we were really good friends. And we go to this fucking museum one night or one day, we go to this museum, we're hanging out, and she reaches over to grab my hand. And I whip my hand back. And I'm like, "What the fuck? You know, we're not on a date." And she was like, "Fuck you." And she left.
Good for her. I'm glad she
And
left.
she left me there. And I had to walk back to campus. And by the time I got back, everybody had known, like all of our friends knew. And I ran into a common friend and she was like, "You are such a dick." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You know, she likes you." And I was like, "I like her too." And she's like, "You're a fucking asshole." So I was like, "Well, I got to go to work." So I went to work at my bar and she showed up with a date to my
Oh,
bar.
Ooh,
yeah.
she's a queen.
She's the baddest bitch I
Oh,
know.
she
She's
is.
amazing.
I love the way she
Seriously,
handled
my
that.
wife is one of the most amazing humans that I have ever encountered. I'm so grateful. We celebrated 20 years together this past summer.
Congrats.
Congratulations. That's
For
Cool.
real, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
she shows
Yeah.
up with this dude and they're laughing and I'm like, "Arr." I go over, I'm like, "Get out of here. You're cut off." And he's like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, I didn't do anything." I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here." And she's like, "What are you doing? You can't tell me who I can date. We're not even dating." And I'm like, "All
Yeah.
right, fucking Friday, we're going on a real date." She's like, "Okay, fine." And I swear to God, as I recall, she turns to me, she says, "All right, we're good. Like, you can leave."
I love that. No, she handled that beautifully,
She did, and we've
perfectly.
been
She
together
did.
ever since. And
That's wonderful.
when this summer, when we were celebrating, I looked at her and I said, so many people were like, they're never gonna make it. And we kind of talked our shit together about all those people, friends and
Oh, yeah.
family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
We've
I was
done
like,
that too with
I'm
with
so grateful
yeah.
for that. We're evidence that sometimes it's your worst qualities that can get you to a healthier spot. And she is stubborn as fuck and does not give up. And me, I'm kind of underperforming and lazy.
So you guys balance each
That's
other a little bit,
hilarious.
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I look at us now and I'm like, I am so grateful we made it because she's my best friend. I love her. She is such a good human. And I was just like, I don't really want to do this over again.
You know what? We've always said, because we were friends first too, and for like 3 years, and I've always said you have to have friendship in a marriage for it to sustain through life, because life is gonna throw everything at you, and when the shit is really deep and down, it's the friendship that gets you through. It's truly is.
Yeah. For
Yeah,
real, I tell her all the time, there's no one I'd rather spend time with than
yeah.
her. And she makes me laugh. She is the funniest fucking person. And I swear to you, she's a sailor. She's going to kill me. But she's a pastor. She's a sailor. She is one of
Wow,
the kindest humans I've ever known. She gives me such mad hope, and she is the best fucking mom ever. Oh my God, she's a great mom.
that's
Like,
awesome.
our kids are so lucky that she's their mom because she's funny, she's really creative, she's super involved. She's just a great mom.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah, that's
I'm
great.
just so happy to hear that you found your
Yeah,
person and she found her person,
yeah.
I,
you know?
absolutely. I, I have over this journey, and that's the thing that impresses me the most. Like, I got to that point where I was like, I know what hurt is. I know what damage is.
Mhm,
What happens if I say yes to me? Let's see. And that began a string of events in life over the last 25 years where I chose me. And that pissed off a lot of people and it lost a lot of relationships and friendships. But I found me and I love myself. I can say that with great honesty. I love my being, and I don't know. I identify now as an apatheist. I don't have any energy to prove or disprove God's existence. Fuck it. If
mhm,
God exists, God exists. I'm not gonna fuck it. I want to be healthy for me. I want to be healthy for my kids, but I want to help others. That's why I do what I do as a therapist. I want to help others find they're healthy, they're happy, if that's ministry, fuck it, it is. I'm so grateful that this whole fucking sordid journey has brought me to this space that I get to sit with my patients and watch them heal and grow and explicitly help men because I try to work with as many men as I can
mhm.
because I want them to have a healthier masculinity. I am so tired of all this toxic bullshit. It's stupid. Men are given intimacy is sex and emotion is anger. You cannot live a whole ass life like that.
Yep, yep.
And the bar to be a good man is so fucking low. It's sad.
Yes,
I just don't have
agreed.
to rape people or kill people, and I'm a good man. How about brothers? How about we raise the bar a little bit?
Yeah, yeah.
Be kind, be compassionate, be slow to anger. I'm sorry, what, be like Jesus? What the fuck?
Right, right. Well, have you found that, especially in our generation, most men, patients, if yours, or you don't even have to say patients of yours, but most men are avoidants?
Yeah, overwhelming majority, absolutely. And if a
Yeah.
man deviates from that, they're generally ostracized and called queer or something. That toxic masculinity is so horrific and ingrained. You know, Brian, I bet we could spin stories about like middle school and middle school gym.
Oh,
What
100%.
a fucking horror show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had guarantee there was at least one of our coaches who was a pedophile, fucking guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because there was those rumors.
Yeah.
And he used to sit there with these naked little boy middle schoolers who'd never seen naked other boys ever and make you hand him a fucking wet fucking towel to get out of the gym. And he would sit in that cage and watch all those naked little boys parade through, scared shitless.
Did you guys have that where you would
I
have
no,
coaches that would
we had to change for gym in middle school, but not get naked, and there were no showers or anything.
were
But
so
in
you
high
guys
school,
and
that became a thing, like, after a basketball game or a
you
football.
guys would shower?
Not everybody. The coaches would be in there, though.
The
To
coaches
his
would be
point, that
the
some of the
coaches
coaches,
were in there and they
I
could
didn't get the vibe that any of them were pedophiles, but perverts for sure. They were more interested in the girls. I
mm,
don't think we had any any male coaches interested in male boys.
but
That never became a thing,
you
but
wouldn't
they certainly
know
were accused of we had some accused of,
for the girls.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a rumor of one with with the girls. But with the guys, you wouldn't know because they could just be watching you just from their office and you wouldn't know if they're getting off on it or not. They
Yeah,
kind of
and I,
Yeah.
I could tell you, I never saw like touching or anything. It was like
yeah.
creeper. And I say it, I guarantee there was at least one that was a pedophile. I could be not right, but at the very least, he was very discomforting, creepy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was unsettling. I think about how it was back then. Like, it was
There were
just
no boundaries.
Well, I think,
There were no boundaries. There was no protection of kids. There was none.
that for real. Because
yeah.
None.
the freshman year in high school, there was a rumor of one of the female coaches was sleeping with football players.
Yeah. Oh,
And I remember sitting out like on the blacktop on those little circles you got in trouble,
yeah.
and walking by, this coach walked by, and the football coaches and some of the other guys did this
Wow.
because she apparently gave some kid chlamydia.
Oh
God.
my God. Oh my
What's
God.
interesting too, though, is you grew up in the epicenter of fucking weirdness, right? Southern California, LA. All those crazy movies we watched were brainchilds of people down there that were
But you know
part
what's
of the.
funny? That was so not like I like the movie Valley Girl.
Yes, I
Fucking
Yeah,
love
love
yeah.
that
that
movie.
movie. I love
Nick
that
Cage
movie.
kicked so much ass in that movie.
Yeah.
Um, that the speech and stuff, like all that stuff, absolutely existed, but that it was not a thing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Hollywood. Like when
Yeah.
like watch the movies, I'm like, when the fuck did that happen? The only thing that was close was Fast Times.
Mm.
Mhm.
That particular mall was the Sherman Oaks Galleria. We used to go there,
Yeah,
and
that's
fucking
cool.
Perry's Pizza. I would still love to get that square pizza. Oh my
Yeah.
god, it was good.
Well,
That's it was
Goalie.
because
so
I look at Jersey. For me, love Kevin Smith, one of my fucking heroes.
Mhm.
I watch Clerks and I'm like, oh my god, that's the life I missed. I need to move to Jersey.
that's so funny.
That is funny.
So, when you met your wife and you guys start dating, um, from there, how did you get to becoming a therapist? Like, what happened in between that time?
Go to seminary, and I never really wanted to be a pastor. I was like, I don't have anywhere else to go. So I went with the idea I'm going to find a different path somewhere. And it was introduced to me there. They had a dual degree program for an MSW and an MDiv at the University of Texas.
Mhm.
And they asked me, hey, we're doing this new program. They handpicked me. Will you apply for this and be one of the first students to do it? And I was like, okay, yeah. So I applied after being handpicked, mind you, and they declined me
Mm.
for being too religious.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like, do you fucking know me? Oh my God, I'm a fucking sailor. I'm a drunk. How the fuck am I too religious?
Yeah.
So the guy that was the seminary who was in charge came to me and was like, so apologetic. I am so sorry. That wasn't supposed to happen. But we want you to do it again, but you have to apply for next year. So, but by that time, the dual degree part was over. I'd have to do both of them. So they accepted me, but I also got accepted. At that time, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to apply elsewhere. So I applied to like 8 different schools at that point and got accepted to like 5 of them.
Wow.
And to the University of Louisville, the University of Pittsburgh, and to Columbia, I got full scholarships.
Wow.
And on a side, I got accepted to Princeton out of Cal State Northridge for a full scholarship, actually a fellowship. But I declined that because the unhealthy relationship was in, that was her dream for us, for me to get my PhD from Princeton and to live Princeton life. And I'm like, fuck you. Don't want that shit. Fuck them Princeton motherfuckers. And I stand by that to this day because they're fucking ridiculous elite. I don't fuck. It would kill me. It
It's
would
a
have killed
beautiful
me.
campus, but I get your sentiment.
Yeah, that's not my crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
It would
Yeah.
not. I'm an old punker. So uh, I got accepted also to the University of Texas, but they didn't give me a full scholarship. And the school I was at said, we can only guarantee you housing for 1 year. And I'm like, I need 2 years. I know. So I declined it and we moved to the University of Louisville.
Okay.
And I started there. But when we showed up, we got married 2 days after we graduated seminary, drove as our honeymoon up to Louisville. We landed with $300 in our pocket that her grandmother gave us, a truck full of shit into an apartment we sight unseen rented that was in the fucking ghetto. There was a murder in the alley.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck are we doing here? Um, and I go to get into school and they're like, oh, well, it's going to cost this much. Wait, I got a full ride. No, I'm an out of state student.
No
So I
way.
had to pay the difference. And I'm like, we can't afford it. So I deferred that to try to establish residency. And that's how I became a minister. I got ordained because I needed a job. I had this degree, never intended to use it. And I got this Craigslist to be a pastor at a church of a denomination I had nothing with. But they said, we will ordain you. And the job was to be an outreach missions pastor to the gay community.
Wow.
So I accepted that and became a fixture in the gay community in Louisville and started all kinds of different programs. And in fact, that work ended up ending my ministry career, but it led to the Oglethorpe case that went to the Supreme Court and ended DOMA.
What case was that?
The Oglethorpe case that
Yeah.
ended the Defense of Marriage Act, that same-sex marriage became legalized.
Oh, okay. So that it would stay or that it became
That it
legalized?
became legal, that to the one of my
Was
best friends and his husband were plaintiffs in that case, and he and I worked together in Louisville, Kentucky, and he and his husband went to, remember Kim Davis, that crazy clerk that
yeah,
denied
Yes.
the
the
one who
marriages?
wouldn't
Yes.
issue the marriage
Yes.
license.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
her. I knew
Okay.
her.
Okay. Okay.
Like, they went to her court, got rejected, then they sued.
Yeah,
They
that's
got
legal.
arrested, in fact, and that court case went on up to the Supreme Court. Well, that was part of my work. So
Wow.
Interesting.
it not only ended the segregation of marriage, it made same-sex marriage legal, and it changed two different church denominations, the Presbyterians and the Disciples of Christ, but it cost me my ministry career.
Because you fought for it?
Yes, because I was an advocate and I was essentially a lobbyist. I used to lobby Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul uh, in Frankfort, Kentucky, and in DC. But that all of that work cost me my ministry career. So at that point, I was like, I'm over. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I half-assed attempted suicide,
Oh no. How old were you at
and
this point?
that was 2011.
And you're with your wife, right?
Yep. We've been married for 3 or 4 years and we're moving to Oklahoma. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so they were like, you need to get treatment, man. And I was like, I don't want to go inpatient. So my deal was I'll go to intensive therapy. And that's what saved my life. And that's how I became a therapist.
What pushed you over the edge in that?
That I helped everyone. I helped so many people. When I was climbing the ladder, I was sort of church famous. And
Okay,
when I
so
was
your
climbing the
world
ladder,
imploded.
it did, and my
Yeah,
identity exploded,
yeah,
my
got it.
everything, all the hard work I did, the 15 years,
You were
all the
doing good
academics.
things, but
Yeah,
with the
and
wrong
I
people.
never asked for shit.
Yeah.
I never asked people for anything. I always just gave and gave and gave. And when I called in the cars and said, "Look, I really need help," no one came to my rescue, and everyone abandoned me.
How long had you been a pastor or minister?
15 years.
15 years. But they knew you were working with the gay community, right? That was part of your deal?
Correct. And it wasn't the people that I worked directly with, they weren't directly the ones that banned me from the church. They were the ones that didn't show up to help me.
Okay. So the church was okay with you working with the gay community, but you can't do anything like help change their life for the
Well,
better.
that particular church that I was with was totally about it. And in fact, my work gave them a genesis and they revitalized themselves and took the work I was doing and it transformed that church. But I was written out of the history of that church. It was a really toxic situation.
Just because you fought for the
Well,
legal.
my assumption, and I never talked to anybody. I literally, when I was leaving, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like I'm done. And I asked like for help a couple times, but didn't get anything. I'm like, fuck it, we're done.
Had DOMA passed before you left?
No,
So it was still going through the courts,
it was still going through the
and that's
courts.
why
And in
they were
fact,
pissed at you.
when that case reached the Supreme Court and it was enacted, the senior minister that I was working with at the time back then uh, reached out to me through social media and I'd cut off contact with him and with everyone, blocked everybody. Um, he reached out to me and was like, hey, I just want to acknowledge that this is because of you. You did this. This is your work.
So he
Hmm.
was okay with you doing that, but you still were banned from the church.
He didn't ban me. It was the administration of the region I was in. They would not what they did, they couldn't take away my ordination, but what they did was said, um, we're not going to circulate your profile. You're not going to get a church here.
All because of that work you did?
Yeah,
A big deal in Kentucky.
That's
All
crazy.
of Kentucky except Louisville is pretty conservative, I think, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And when we would go into the rural areas to do education about what does the Bible really say,
yeah.
man, they killed a census worker, hung him from a fucking tree, and I was going into that environment to tell them this is what the Bible really says about gay people.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
It
lucky you
was
didn't get hung.
stupid. Yeah. And
So
it was that time too that Dr. Tiller was murdered here in Kentucky or Kansas for he was an abortion doctor.
right, I
He was
remember.
murdered, and I eulogized him at a public ceremony in Kentucky, and got death threats too.
Okay.
And
So,
the Westboro Baptist Church protested me.
Hmm.
oh God, they're a whole nother thing. They're they are just evil, evil people.
Yeah,
Um,
I won't give them any more breath right now,
no,
but
that's
they
enough of that. So, okay, so you get into intensive therapy. Would you say that's was your first step for the first time saying yes to you and not everyone else?
I think cognitively, yeah. Like that was the first time I consciously chose me as like I need to do something different. And that therapist and I, we worked together at first. I was seeing her 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And that eventually led to tapering down. But in that, I remember being so angry at her. She's like, can you pray at all? And I'm like, no, I'm so mad at God. And she said, well, what can you do? And I said, I can doodle. And she said, well, let's start there. So I would draw in her office, doodle in her office, and she would ask me about it. And that led to me buying some computer program and teaching myself digital design.
Mm.
And that led to a career where I was designing logos and websites for people back then. And it actually blew up and it was taking off. And then I started doing digital art. And then I got accepted to the social work program at University of Oklahoma. And I was faced with a dilemma. Look, dude, you can't do both. So I uh, shut my business down to pursue the social work and that. I'm grateful. That's literally why I'm here.
Did you
Did you do your own website? Your current one?
No, one of my buddies did it because I stopped doing all the design. I mean, I designed it.
Yeah.
Like I worked with his digital designer, and it was all my ideas. And I'm like, look, I want a therapy site that's not a therapist site. I want it to look like a punk band, which is why it looks like it looks because sorry, Bad Religion. Love you guys. You're my favorite band from when I was a kid. And by the way, I went to the same high school as Bad Religion did.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
I've always loved that band, but I saw their website. I'm like, I want Bad Religion's site. So I highly inspired by their website for mine.
Yeah, cool.
So from becoming a social worker, did you end up going back to school to become a
Yes,
licensed therapist?
I did. I went to the University of Oklahoma and finished my MSW there. And then I went under supervision in Oklahoma the first time and got my clinical license there. And then I worked for the Department of Corrections through the Department of Mental Health Substance Abuse Services doing rehabilitation.
Wow.
And then my wife was we moved churches from Oklahoma to here to Topeka. And when I came here, I was like 2 or 3 months shy of 5 years of practicing as a social worker, clinical social worker. So Kansas suspended my clinical license and made me go back under supervision here.
Oh my gosh.
So I tell people I have the equivalency of a board certified surgeon as mental health because I've been under, it was a total of 6 years, almost 7 years of clinical supervision I was under
Oh
Hmm.
my gosh. And then when did you start your own practice?
in 2000, June of 2001.
2001?
Yep. Or sorry, 2021.
Okay.
2021. Okay.
Sorry,
And
sorry, I'm fucking up with the 20s.
no, that's okay. We started from the start. I know it's a
Yeah.
lot. So, and how has what would you say having your own practice has meant to you in your life?
It has been life giving. It's allowed me to become a better therapist, a better human. I love what I do. I call my office my clubhouse. I get to welcome patients in, and it's sort of a masculine, nerdy clubhouse. You know, I'm really into Lego. I jokingly tell patients now that I am a aspiring Lego master builder that moonlights as a therapist, uh, and it's the therapy part that allows me to be able to hold space for patients and you know. It's just it's the greatest honor. I legit love what I do. I look forward to. I mean, I'm looking at tomorrow. School's closed.
Mm.
I just got a text while we were recording that school's closed. Fuck. But I'm like, I texted my wife. Becky's like, "Hey, school's closed." She's like, "I know. Fuck." I'm like, "Do you want me to cancel patients tomorrow, or can I come in and work?" Because I love what I do. I love hanging out with my patients, and yeah, I don't like canceling, but I know it's I try to be equitable in the child rearing. I don't want my wife. Oh, she's gonna do it. So when I get home, we're gonna have that conversation and figure out what the fuck it's gonna be like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get to fuck around with Lego. Like while you guys are here, um, I built this yesterday.
Oh
This is
my
a
gosh.
Lego build, a mock that
That's
I
cool.
built yesterday, but in transporting it fucking broke apart. So I got to fix it. But I get to do this
That's so
because of the work
cool.
I do.
That is so cool. Do you do remote with patients in
I
addition?
do. I do offer virtual service, and one of the things Kansas joined the a multi-state licensing, but they
Mm.
haven't issued them yet. It was supposed to happen earlier in January. It's supposed to happen this, but it's not. Um, I don't know when that'll take effect, but that was my plan when that went into effect to openly specialize working with men, particularly. That I'm also a licensed religious trauma expert.
Mm.
That's another thing I do is help people that have experienced religious trauma. So I'm an addiction specialist. I'm a certified licensed clinical addictions counselor, a licensed clinical social worker. My specializations include men's issues, men's trauma, early childhood trauma, and religious trauma. Uh, you know, I say my life stories help me be able to sit with people that experience some really epic shit, and I can help people. I can sit with people that others don't. That's why I
Well,
say my weirdos. If you're my weirdos, the model I use. Well, who's my weirdo? Well, we all walk these paths in life, and we come to forks. To the right there's the dark path, it's storming, and there's thorns and there's shit lurking in the shadows. And to the left, there's unicorns and rainbows and 7-Elevens and provision. And my weirdos, we take a look to the right and the left, and we go to the right.
Yeah.
And I ask, well, why'd you go that way? And they respond, because I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
And
other side is boring, and that's if you're that person, you're one of my weirdos. And if you like stupid dad jokes and don't mind vulgarity, and then that you will work great together. But I tried the soccer mom path, and I just I don't do them justice.
yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I
Hmm.
think when you come from trauma, um, normality is so foreign and can seem so boring and actually harder to exist within than the chaos and the
Oh my God,
oblivion.
right? Like
Yes.
I death metal. I go to sleep to death metal.
Right. It's more
And my
comfortable.
wife's like, "What the fuck is up
Yeah.
with that?" I'm like, "Is it the chaos inside is nothing. That external chaos calms me."
Yes. Yeah. Because speaking for myself, I didn't have a blueprint even on really any lot of things, but figuring all of that out and then having it was almost more effort to follow the normal path of all the other wives and all the other moms, how you're supposed to be, than to be go the dysfunctional crazy route. That would have been more comfortable, but I had to commit to the stability, if that makes sense. That did
No,
not feel comfortable.
absolutely. And we touched on this earlier. Why do people that experience abuse go to the abuse? Because it's
Yeah.
what they know.
Yeah.
I think for me, I frame it as it's a healthier reframing of the chaos. Do I still have that gravity towards the chaos? Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
so comfortable in chaos. It's not even fucking funny.
Yeah.
But to reframe that and to make it into a healthier relationship for myself and
Yeah.
for those around me, I have forged these pathways where I let that danger, Ryan, the Troy, he gets to eat at these places and it's safer. So it's ways to manage and mitigate the trauma and the chaos. Well, I'll fucking put on death metal and go to sleep to it, or I'll,
Yeah.
I'll
Funny.
fucking fuck around with different hobbies. And my wife's like, okay, what's the next one, Ryan?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck off, ADHD brain, and I'm giving myself healthier parameters.
Yeah.
I
You're
accept it. I tell patients everything is speaking something. And if I can learn how to listen to the chaos, when I'm hurting, feel the hurt. When I'm sad, be sad. When I'm happy, be happy. To be mindful and present in the things and not try to fight them, that's when I can heal.
Yes. It's almost like taking the power away from your demons. And it's not that they go away, but you've channeled their power, their darkness, you've channeled for good. I know it sounds so cliche, but like I always told my kids, there's nothing you can tell me that you've done or thought about that I'm going to be shocked because I've done it. So you could say anything. You could talk about cutting, suicidal ideation, drugs, drinking, promiscuous sex, whatever it is, abortion. There's nothing you can say to me that I'm going to be like, oh my God. So, and I tell that to friends that are close to
Well,
me.
not on the surface.
I tell, no, what?
No, what I mean is I'm with you. We accept it all, but then we may talk later like, "Oh, fuck, how do we deal with
Oh,
this?"
well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then it's like your child
Yeah,
and you're
well,
like, but
it's the
yeah,
listening, then it becomes the parenting,
yes.
and it's a
But
little
I
different.
but I think when you
Yeah.
have that history and you've gone through stuff,
Mhm.
if you can figure out how to use it to create space for others, which is what you do
Yeah, yeah.
professionally, right? But as a parent, I've tried to use that and for friends and say this is a space that there's no judgment because there's nothing you can say that's going to shock me. And so I think your story, which we've just heard, you absolutely aid you in your and with your patients. There's no question about it.
I yeah, I tell patients when someone asks me, well, how the fuck did you become a therapist? And I said, honestly, I've lived a life into which I painted myself into a corner where I can't fucking do anything about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I am so fucked. I look at what what's happening with ACA. I'm like, Man, if insurance companies could, they would return back to old where mental health care is a rider, where you have to opt into it, which will limit my access completely. As it is right now, mental health care and physical health care are treated very separately.
Mhm.
Again, I have the equitable credentials to a board certified surgeon. Do I
Wow.
get paid like a board certified surgeon? No. Do I have the student loan debt of a certain? Yes.
That's
Been paying
real.
on my student loan since 2008. I owe today 60,000 more than I collectively borrowed, having paid on them that much.
Oh my
Oh, the
God. What a
interest, yeah.
nightmare. What a
Yeah,
nightmare.
it sucks. And they're supposed to be forgiven last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And I applied and qualified, but our state attorney general sued the government and they put him in administrative hold, and it's still in administrative hold now. I don't know what the fuck is up, but I'm they're not forgiven.
Hmm.
God,
I'm still paying monthly.
that's crazy. When did you find out you were diabetic?
Oh God, 2010,
Are you type 1?
type 2.
Type 2. So you have to watch your sugars don't drop or else you're gonna.
Yes, and I have a glucose monitor that I
Okay.
turned off while we were talking.
Oh no.
Well, I knew I was going to drop because I this is literally all I have
Oh my
in
gosh.
my office
I
right now
have to
because
let
I
you go home.
I didn't go shopping.
Yeah, we need to wrap up.
Yeah, I know. I don't need you, Pat. You'll be the
Yeah,
first.
I do need to
I
get
know you
wrap it
need
up
to
because my
go.
wife's like, "Honey,
I know.
I
I
have
support
one
you."
question.
I know. What'd she say? I support you, but I need you to come home.
Yeah, like, baby, the kids are getting restless.
Yeah, real quick. I know you became a parent later in life.
Mhm.
So, just a quick question. How long were you guys married before you started having children?
6 years.
And how did having children, um, I know for myself, it was incredibly healing for a lot of stuff that I had gone through. Um, how did it change your life?
I will say, being a dad, top top experience. I love being a dad.
Yeah.
Um, just the thought of like I'm thinking of my children now, and I am so excited to leave here and go and see those little faces. You know, they're 9 and 11 right now, and I'm trying really hard. I have to remind myself intentionally, dude, they're not going to be little forever because it's so fucking hard. And my trauma butts up against this shit all the time, and I have to remind myself, dude, back the fuck up. He's gonna be smart. That's what fucking middle schoolers do.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's trying to find his independence, and you've provided such a safe and loving home that he's a shit.
Yeah. He feels confident enough to be a shit.
Yes.
Yes.
And he is so much smarter than me. That is not an exaggeration. He taught himself how to read during COVID,
Wow.
Oh, cool.
playing Zelda. Like
Well,
I literally put the captions on and said, look, the words they coordinate. And he fucking memorized it and taught himself how to sight read.
that's great. That
And
is
he reads,
great.
he's 11, reads at a college level.
That's
Wow.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I told him, dude, I'm not shitting you. You're way smarter than me. But how to change it's changed. It's being a parent has been the most triggering fucking thing ever. But it's been such a healing journey for both my wife and I. We were married for 6 years before we had kids, and we tried for about 3 years
Mm,
to have kids, and we couldn't. And we in fact got to the place where we're like, maybe that's just what God wants for us is that we're not going to have kids, and that was a really hard place to be.
yeah.
Um, and I don't remember if it was the day, but my wife, we were like, okay, let's go see about fertilization treatment. And she started that journey and went to an appointment, and they told her, honey, we can't, you can't do this. And she was so bummed. She's like, because you're pregnant.
Oh
Oh,
my
wow.
gosh.
Fucking for real. I tell him,
Wow.
well, I don't tell him my son, but
Right.
he's an answered prayer.
Wow.
Just like I say, my dad used to always tell, like after his heart attack, he would say, honey, your job in this life is to plant trees that you will never enjoy the shade of.
Mm,
But while you do the work of planting those trees, you will rest under the shade of those planted before you. And that's what life is. And I take that to heart, and I accept and acknowledge that I am planting trees, and the labor I put forth is not for me. It's for my children, my children's children, and for those that come after me. And while I do that work, I will rest under the shade of the trees planted before me. And when I die, and I tell my kids this, they get tired of me. When I die, I will die and I will become an ancestor. And I think for me, it's an honor to lose and shed Ryan, and I become an ancestor. I join the collective, and that's a goal for me. Most of us within 100 years of our death are forgotten.
Well, that's a beautiful way to look at it, is that you become an
Yeah, I
ancestor.
like that.
I really like that. And this episode is part of your legacy.
Well,
Right.
who knows? I don't know what the fuck's going to come out of it. you know,
Yeah, but I mean, it's something that your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren can,
if
you know
if something comes at the most, I try. I got to meet you two. I got to
Yeah.
spend this time, and it has been a joy. You know, you guys have good vibes. I mean, if I was in, I would fucking hang out with you guys.
Oh, totally.
You have
No,
good vibes
no,
too,
we
though.
could do another 5 hours
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
I know you had
For
one
real.
question. Yeah, for sure. You had one more
I'm
question?
sorry, Brian.
Yeah, she gives me one opportunity to
Oh,
ask
well,
you a question.
to your last question.
It's and I'll ask an abridged one. We glossed over the fact that you grew up in Southern California and you were into punk. That's sort of the American. I mean, New York's big punk scene, but LA's a punk scene, right?
I
What's
mean,
what's your favorite band or
oh shit.
yeah?
I mean, bad growing up, Bad Religion and NoFX were like the fucking shit. I still love. I saw Bad Religion this summer. My wife and I got to go because I originally bought tickets to see them this summer to take my son to his first punk show.
Oh, that's cool.
Cool.
But as we were going, he's like, "Dad, it's fucking hot. I don't want to go." And I'm like, "Okay." And I was going to take my brother, and my wife said, "Hey, fucker, they're playing with Dropkick. That's my favorite fucking band. Fuck you. We're going." So we had the best fucking date. It was such a rad
That's
show
cool.
That's
to
awesome.
go and have all these old fucking punkers. Like you look around, and I'm like, "Look at us, motherfuckers. We made it. We got arthritis, bad backs, our
Yeah,
knees hurt, but we're here. Holy shit,
Yeah.
this is awesome."
Yeah.
I think that the Chili Peppers are considered punk, right?
I would consider more funk, but I love the Chili Peppers. First couple albums, Uplift Mofo Party Plan's my favorite. Favorite band, probably Bad Religion, but I love all kinds of R&B and soul is my heart. I love Sam Cooke. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
not a
that's
lot of
cool.
music I don't like, save for like modern country. I don't hate it, but it's not. I
Yeah.
won't choose it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I love Johnny Cash. I love
Oh,
the
yeah.
Bakersfield sound. I'm all into that. Give me some
Brian loves
Charlie
Johnny
Pride.
Cash.
I've been
He loves
running
Johnny
and
Cash.
I ran to Johnny Cash this morning.
You ran this
I
morning to
love
Johnny
Johnny Cash.
Cash. We're also big.
But it's Johnny Cash. That it's not like your normal. I don't even know local new country. It's Johnny Cash though.
Johnny Cash is not country. He's Johnny
He's
Cash.
Yes,
Johnny
he's
Cash.
Johnny
That's what I
Cash.
mean. Yeah.
We're deadheads. We're
Yeah.
like huge deadheads.
Okay. Get the fuck out of here. I love the Dead.
Yeah, we
Oh my God.
I don't know if you can see
I
it.
don't.
These
You
are
probably
all
can't
Grateful
see.
Dead tapes.
I don't think you can
No.
see.
Yeah, you
Can you
can.
see it? The bootlegs?
No,
bootleg.
that's so rad. Now I can see.
Yeah.
It's from my college, actually high school and college days.
Yeah, we're hardcore. Yeah, we
I
were
love
there.
that.
We saw
You know,
Sherry.
Check out Billy Strings if
Yes.
you like the Dead at all. We've gotten into Billy. He was in Tulsa not too long ago.
Billy Strings. He's awesome. He's awesome.
All right, I'm gonna have to. And I apologize. My wife just texted me. It was like, all right, fucker.
Question. This is the last
Yes.
question. My last question is always, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh God, where do I see myself in 5 years? You know, I honest to God, I really don't try to. If I'm doing what I'm doing now, but have had different experiences and have grown and learned, I'm good. I would love to be doing this, like being a therapist and fucking around with Lego, and that's what I want. But I mean, whatever. If I'm dead, I'm dead. If I'm alive, I hope that I'm still kind, and maybe maybe I finish a fucking book. I don't know. I would like to be here in 5 years. That'd be cool.
I think that would be very
Yeah.
cool. I really do. I think, and I would like to have you come back on to dive deeper into men's mental health.
I'm game. I've
Yeah.
really loved hanging out with you guys, and
Yeah. If you'd come
maybe I
back.
won't be so nervous because I don't know if you guys knew this. I was fucking terrified.
And
No, it didn't come through, but
nice job faking it.
I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Well, it's good Gen Xers are good at
Yeah.
that. But we can't thank you enough for being so candid with us, sharing your story. I know there's going to be listeners out there that feel seen from it and can relate to parts of it and will help people. And so we can't thank you. And I know we went over
Thank your
in
family.
time, so thank your wife.
Thank your wife.
Well,
Um,
I'm gonna pick up chips and queso on the way home as a peace offering.
There you go.
That'll do it. And we would
And
definitely go ahead. I'm sorry.
as I say, if I may,
Yeah.
to anyone listening, I just really hope that you know that you're an amazing human. I don't give a fuck who you are, what you've done. Nothing defines you exhaustively. It's always okay to do different, and it's never too late to do different.
I
I
love
just
that.
hope that if you're questioning about your worth or value, please fucking choose yourself. If it's just for today. And in that, I can't answer or work with everybody, but if you reach out, I'll try to do what I can, point you to some direction, but please, you deserve some kind of help. You deserve a space to be heard, please choose you.
I love that. I love that message. That's really, I think, what a lot of people need to hear is that it's okay to choose yourself. It's
It's not
okay.
selfish. It might feel like selfish,
Oh, it
but
does.
that when you start to do different, that's how it feels. Like, oh fuck, I suck.
Yeah,
No, you're being healthy. Fuck all that.
exactly. Yeah, that's the healthy choice. So, but
It
we
is.
are, if Ryan will come back, we are going to have him come back on and dive deeper into men's mental health. I really would love to do an episode on that.
I would be down, but we got to have Brian work some Johnny Cash into it.
There you
There you
go.
go.
We'll do that. So thank you again, Ryan. And for
My
our
pleasure.
listeners, we will have everywhere you can find Ryan in the show notes. So if you do want to reach out to him, always leave any questions or comments on social media or on YouTube, whatever. And we will make sure if they're for Ryan that he knows about them. And of course, we always love to hear from you as well. So we hope you enjoyed this episode and we will see you next time. Bye.